This girl named Yunhai should have been living a life of comfort and ease, but due to a tragic accident, she found herself at the bottom of society. Due to her family's poverty, she couldn't even afford to go to college. Her mother worked tirelessly to support the family, but her father was a compulsive gambler who ended up deeply in debt. To change her fate, Yunhai placed all her hopes on her boyfriend. She worked hard and lived frugally, all to pay for his education. However, her boyfriend was fortunate enough to pass the bar exam. Yunhai's mother, wanting her daughter's fiancé to look presentable, secretly sold her wedding ring. When Yunhai saw the price tag on the suit, she hesitated. She had intended to buy her boyfriend a more reasonably priced one, but her boyfriend criticized her for having no taste. Indeed, a cheap woman couldn't even choose a decent suit. Youngho even went ahead and picked the most expensive one. Yunhai looked at the price on the receipt and felt depressed. Exhausted, she finally found a seat, but her boyfriend snatched it first. Youngho even complained to Yunhai about why she had to save that little money to eat at home, but Yunhai said there was food at home, so why go out and waste money? And didn't you say you liked the food my mom cooks? Youngho immediately said that eating the same dishes every day would make him sick. What's even more hateful is that Youngho said that his mother didn't have a single decent dress to wear to the wedding. Yunhai immediately said that she didn't have any money. Youngho asked her, "If you don't have any money, why are you getting married?" It turned out that Youngho had agreed to marry Yunhai to repay her for her kindness. "Where else could you find a man like me who is about to become a prosecutor?" Youngho said with contempt. "I feel sorry for myself for marrying a woman like you." At that moment, Yunhai, heartbroken, couldn't hold back any longer. "Did you forget who paid for your college education?" Youngho whispered to Yunhai. "Don't make a scene. Don't you know how embarrassing this is?" Yunhai couldn't understand why he only now realized how embarrassing it was. "When you begged me for money in front of our relatives and friends, I didn't feel embarrassed." Youngho was speechless. After getting out of the car, he took a deep breath. He seemed to be telling Yunhai that he was finally free. At that moment, Yunhai secretly vowed to herself that one day she would become someone her boyfriend couldn't afford. That day, Yunhai accidentally saw a woman's resume in her boyfriend's room. Coincidentally, this woman named Kim Won was exactly the same age as her and had the same birthday. Why was God so unfair to two people born on the same day? She sold books in a bookstore, while the other was an editor at a publishing house. Not only did Kim Won attend a prestigious university, but her father was also the chairman of a conglomerate. Yunhai wondered why she couldn't have been born into a family like that. Why did they live in the same city but have such different fates? Just as Yunhai was about to leave, she suddenly realized something was wrong. That night, Youngho came home and changed into the new designer suit Yunhai had bought for him. He said confidently, "A handsome man like me, how could Yunhai be good enough for me?" Then he picked up the resume of his blind date and said, "If I hadn't passed the bar exam, how could I have met a woman like this?" Early the next morning, Youngho went to his mother-in-law's snack bar for breakfast as usual. Then he arrived early at the meeting place for his blind date with the rich girl. Yunhai secretly followed behind him. When the rich girl arrived, Yunhai recognized her at once as the woman in the resume. Nian was born into a wealthy family and was doted on by her parents since childhood. Although she had no shortage of money, she put all her energy into her career. The thing that worried her parents the most was her marriage. Nian was therefore urged by her mother to go on blind dates. Nian had no choice but to obey her mother's arrangements. In order to end the blind dates as soon as possible, Nian completely changed her ladylike image. Youngho could sense that Nian was not satisfied with him, but he said that he fell in love with Nian at first sight. Nian immediately asked him if he was interested in her family background. Youngho thought that someone like him should find a richer family. He immediately said, "I think you are my other half." Just when Youngho thought that he was about to confess his feelings, Yunhai suddenly appeared beside him. He had no idea that Yunhai was actually a rich heiress, and the person in front of her was the one who had stolen Yunhai's happy life. Youngho hurriedly explained to Nian that he had already broken up with this woman. Seeing her boyfriend's ugly face, Yunhai picked up the juice and was about to pour it on his head. But Yunhai suddenly remembered that her mother had bought this suit for her boyfriend in installments. She couldn't bear to ruin the suit her mother had bought for him, so she poured the juice on herself with trembling hands. Yunhai sadly tells her boyfriend that it was because of her mother that she didn't pour the juice on his head. Nian directly pours another glass of juice on Youngho's face. Then she takes out a tissue to wipe Yunhai's dirty clothes. But Yunhai is not grateful and instead scolds her, asking her what right she has to pour juice on her boyfriend. Nian explains that she just wanted to vent Yunhai's anger. Yunhai said, "If you really wanted to help me, you wouldn't have met this man again. To you, Youngho is just an ordinary blind date. But to me, Young-ho is my hope and the starting point of my life. Perhaps this was the most unforgettable blind date for Neon. Now that things had turned out this way, Young-ho felt much more at ease, because he finally had an excuse to officially break up with Yunhai. Although I spent your money and your mother's money to get into university. But none of you know the mental anguish and pressure I've been under. If you hadn't passed the exam, wouldn't you have changed? Young-ho knew all along that Yunhai didn't love him. If it weren't for wanting to get ahead with my help, would you and your mother have done all this? If I marry you, we'll have to live in that dilapidated shack. If I succeed in my blind date with Neon, I'll be a millionaire after we get married. And with my current status, women with such conditions would be lining up to marry me. At that moment, Yunhai finally came to her senses. She ran out of the hotel like a madwoman and nearly got hit by a luxury car. Chairman Kim hurriedly got out of the car to check if Yunhai was injured. Yunhai cried and apologized, blaming herself for being so reckless. The secretary beside her felt sorry for her and handed her a handkerchief. Chairman Kim then helped Yunhai into the car and prepared to take her home. Actually, Young-ho had been on a blind date at the hotel, and Chairman Kim had seen everything. Chairman Kim cautiously asked Yunhai if she had been dating her boyfriend for a long time. Yunhai said they had been together for 3 years and had already set a wedding date. Chairman Kim couldn't understand why a man with an engaged girlfriend would go on a blind date with another woman. Yunhai revealed her boyfriend's ugly thoughts. Then Chairman Kim handed Yunhai his business card and said that he was the father of the girl who had just been on a blind date. If Yunhai was angry, she could contact him anytime. Chairman Kim was very sorry for the hurt his daughter had caused Yunhai. He didn't know how to comfort Yunhai after what had happened. But Yunhai said she envied Neon for having such a kind father. In truth, Yunhai had no idea that Chairman Kim was actually her real father. Upon returning home, Chairman Kim gathered his family for a meeting. He warned his daughter not to go on any more blind dates and to prioritize character above all else when choosing a husband. Chairman Kim also warned his wife not to introduce any more blind dates to their daughter. He would handle Neon's marriage appropriately. He didn't want to spend money to buy a son-in-law. Neon was overjoyed by her father's order. Turning around, Chairman Kim asked his son, "When I die, who will inherit the family fortune?" His son replied, "Of course it will be mine. That's what the law says." Chairman Kim told his children that starting next month, everyone would have to pay their own living expenses and not think about their inheritance. After he died, his fortune would be divided among those who performed well. Although Chairman Kim's decision without consulting his wife made her very unhappy, she didn't dare say anything. In fact, Mrs. Kim had always favored her son and discriminated against her daughter. Neon angrily said that she was the child her mother had picked up. Moreover, her mother had never known that she didn't like cucumbers. Yunhai's favorite dish was cucumber kimchi. Due to the family's financial difficulties, her mother could only buy her cucumbers once a month. After being abandoned by her boyfriend, Yunhai didn't know how to face the future. She was an outstanding student, but her family couldn't afford to send her to school. At that moment, Yunhai truly envied Neon for having a wealthy father. Yunhai's mother had even prepared a new home for her daughter and future son-in-law who were about to get married. To save money, she decorated the house herself, even applying wallpaper. Even though her body was covered in ointment, she refused to go to the hospital. Seeing the nearly finished new home, Yunhai's heart broke. She cried bitterly and ran out of the house. Little did her mother know that the heartless Young-ho had already abandoned Yunhai. Young-ho quietly returned the suit to his mother-in-law. When Yunhai learned that her boyfriend was moving out, she rushed back frantically to stop him. Today, Young-ho finally told the truth. He didn't actually dislike Yunhai. The main issue was her family background, which he couldn't accept. Additionally, Yunhai had a father who was a compulsive gambler. Young-ho believed this would hinder his career advancement. When Yunhai came over crying, Young-ho thought she was going to hit him again. But Yunhai knelt in front of him with tears in her eyes and begged him not to abandon her. She promised that she would study hard and get into college. But Young-ho had already made up his mind. No matter how Yunhai begged, he ruthlessly abandoned her. Heartbroken, Yunhai lay in the pit, not knowing what to do. At that moment, Soyoung had already heard from others that her daughter had been abandoned by Young-ho. In her desperate state, she suddenly received news that Yunhai had been hospitalized. A day and night had passed, and Yunhai still showed no signs of waking up. Soyoung frantically stayed by her daughter's side, crying and begging her to open her eyes. At that moment, Yunhai seemed to be awakened by her mother's cries. A tear slid down her cheek. Soyoung immediately rushed over to call the doctor. When Yunhai regained consciousness, her mother suddenly noticed something strange. Soyoung and her husband both have type B blood, but why does Yunhai have type A? Yunhai even began to suspect that her father had an illegitimate child outside the marriage. Her mother told her not to speak nonsense, her father wasn't that kind of person. However, from a medical perspective, it was impossible for parents with type B blood to have a child with type A blood. Soyoung believed that the hospital must have made a mistake when testing the blood. "You are my biological child. Stop thinking nonsense." Thus, Yunhai and her mother did not give the matter much thought. However, one day at work, Yunhai casually mentioned the incident to her best friend. Her friend said that a similar case had been reported on the news a few days earlier. Due to a hospital error, 2 babies had been switched at birth. Her friend's words made Yunhai feel distracted. It also reminded her of the woman who was born on the same day, month, and year as herself. As luck would have it, this woman appeared at that moment. It turned out that Neon was holding a book launch at the bookstore where Yunhai worked. Her friend sighed and said that rich girls are indeed different. Not only was she dressed in designer brands from head to toe, but her bag was worth more than 10 million won. Yunhai envied the woman born on the same day as her, wondering why their destinies were so different. At that moment, her best friend urged Yunhai to investigate the blood type matter. If her biological mother was indeed a wealthy woman, she would never have to work hard again. Yunhai thought to herself that it would be wonderful if that were true. Looking at Neon's confident expression, Yunhai couldn't help but envy her deeply. After the event, Taehan and Neon were preparing to leave, but he immediately recognized Yunhai, who had almost been hit by a car a few days ago. Taehan told Yunhai that he still had the umbrella she lost that day. Only then did Yunhai remember that he was the man who had handed her the handkerchief. After work that night, her best friend's words kept echoing in Yunhai's mind. After much thought, she decided to call her sister and ask her which doctor she was born to. The next day, Yunhai went to look for him, because it was a serious matter. The hospital couldn't help her investigate. With no other choice, Yunhai threatened to sue the hospital if they didn't help her investigate. She left her contact information and told him to contact her once he had confirmed everything. Yunhai made it clear that she wasn't doing this for money. Even if it was the hospital's mistake, she wouldn't hold them responsible. Yunhai's only goal was to find her biological parents. On her way back, she was so anxious that she almost got hit by a car while running across the street. Yunhai looked up and realized it was Neon's father. Chairman Kim wondered how Yunhai ended up there. Yunhai said she was born in that hospital, so she wanted to take a look. Chairman Kim felt that they had a connection, because his daughter was also born in that hospital. The next day, Yunhai took the business card and went to the mansion. When Yunhai saw the spacious living room, she couldn't help but feel envious. Because of their special connection, Chairman Kim warmly welcomed Yunhai. During their conversation, Chairman Kim learned that Yunhai was not only born in the same hospital as his daughter but also on the same day, month, and year. Chairman Kim didn't think much of it, just feeling that Yunhai had a special connection with his family. However, while going to the restroom, Yunhai secretly took Chairman Kim's razor and toothbrush. She then sent them to a testing center to confirm her suspicions. The doctor told her that she would have to wait until the next afternoon for the results. But the next morning, Yunhai received a call from the hospital where she was born. When she learned that there were only 2 baby girls born at the hospital on the day she was born, Yunhai became even more convinced that the hospital had switched babies and changed her life. Watching her mother put the fish she had chosen on her spoon, Yunhai couldn't bear to leave the mother who had raised her for 28 years. As the time for the test results to come out drew nearer, Yunhai became more and more anxious. Soon, Yunhai received a text message notification that the results were ready. She put down her work and ran out like crazy. When she opened the file with trembling hands and saw the results, she was stunned. She was indeed the daughter of the Chaebol chairman. Just then, Young-ho found Yunhai and asked her why she had betrayed him. It turned out that a few days ago, his sister wanted to help Yunhai win back her boyfriend, so she forged a fake ultrasound report and lied that Yunhai was pregnant. Young-ho was very angry about this. He believed that Yunhai had deliberately ruined him in order to save her own beggarly life. No matter how his boyfriend insulted Yunhai, she pretended not to hear anything. She didn't know how to face this melodramatic life. At that moment, Young-ho thought Yunhai was faking it, but their conversation was overheard by a man who had always sympathized with Yunhai. Young-ho said, "Don't think you can come back to me like this." Then he threw the ultrasound report on the ground. But Yunhai didn't know what was going on. But she wanted to know if her boyfriend had abandoned her for money. Young-ho said that he was going to give Yunhai unlimited child support after his blind date was successful. But because Yunhai suddenly ruined his blind date that day, the rich girl now refuses to answer Young-ho's calls. Young-ho is furious at Yunhai's behavior. At this moment, Yoonhae is determined to get her life back. She wants to make Youngho regret his choice, so she prints out the paternity report. Yoonhae prepares to take this evidence and reclaim everything that belongs to her. Without hesitation, she rings the doorbell of the mansion. Hearing someone answer inside, Yoonhae feels very nervous. Chairman Kim is very happy to see Yoonhae. He enthusiastically introduces Yoonhae to Mrs. Kim. Seeing her biological mother for the first time, Yoonhae begins to tremble all over. She then collapsed to the ground, her legs giving way. Mrs. Kim thought Yoonhae was feeling unwell and rushed over to check on her. After remaining silent for a long time, Yoonhae still didn't speak. Chairman Kim thought she might be uncomfortable and asked Mrs. Kim to step aside. Yoonhae hurriedly called Mrs. Kim back, begging her not to leave. Finally, she gathered her courage and revealed the secret. Upon hearing such absurd words, Chairman Kim angrily tried to kick Yoonhae out, but Yoonhae took out the test results from her and Chairman Kim. Mrs. Kim thought Yoonhae must be desperate to bring such a thing to their home. Chairman Kim was also furious and told Yoonhae to leave immediately. At that moment, Yoonhae could no longer control her tears. Yoonhae said that if Mrs. Kim wanted to know the truth, she should go and do a paternity test with Neon. Mrs. Kim told her to leave immediately or she would call the police to have her arrested. Yoonhae ran out of the mansion crying. She never imagined that the seemingly kind Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim could be so cold-hearted, but she believed that once they learned the truth, they would soon come looking for this daughter who was now reduced to begging. After Yoonhae left, Chairman Kim remained silent. He had heard from Yoonhae that Neon was not only born on the same day as his daughter, but also in the same hospital. However, Chairman Kim and his wife still refused to believe what had happened that day. They believed that Neon was their daughter. Although they said so, Yoonhae's words kept ringing in their ears. What if what Yoonhae said was true? In order to confirm this, Mrs. Kim decided to do a paternity test. If Yoonhae wasn't telling the truth, they would send her to the police station. Mrs. Kim immediately took her daughter's hair to the testing center. The staff told her the results wouldn't be ready until tomorrow. Mrs. Kim offered 3 times the price, demanding they do the test today. When she saw that Neon wasn't biologically related to her, she fainted on the spot. Mrs. Kim burst into tears upon seeing her daughter. Neon was terrified, thinking something terrible had happened to her mother. She hurriedly comforted her mother, telling her not to be too sad. Mrs. Kim couldn't understand how this could have happened. Looking at the daughter she had raised with so much hardship, her heart ached. Chairman Kim saw the mother and daughter hugging each other and crying, and he was so sad that he didn't know how to comfort them. Mrs. Kim regretted insulting her biological daughter who had come to them that morning to claim her. Mrs. Kim couldn't even remember what Yoonhae looked like. Chairman Kim immediately said that the girl was very beautiful. Mrs. Kim desperately wanted to see Yoonhae again, but she couldn't let Neon find out about this. Just then, Neon brought her mother some water. She wanted to know what had happened to make her mother cry so bitterly, but no matter how much Neon pressed her parents, they refused to reveal the truth. In the end, Neon could only pout and try to cheer her mother up before leaving. Mrs. Kim watched her daughter leave, feeling deeply troubled. Yoonhae had been distracted ever since she went to the mansion. She felt guilty when she saw her mother and couldn't look her in the eye. Soyoung saw her daughter dressed up so nicely and thought she had gone to her boyfriend's house. She pressed her daughter about what she had said to Youngho's mother. She even wanted to call the other party to negotiate. Hearing her mother's words, Yoonhae was completely stunned. She wondered how her mother found out about her breakup with her boyfriend. Her mother advised Yoonhae not to think about marrying her prosecutor boyfriend anymore. She didn't want to use her daughter to change her life. Soyoung didn't ask for anything, only that her daughter stay by her side. But Yoonhae remained silent and refused to speak. Ambitious, she desperately wanted to escape this poor home and live the life of a wealthy family she had always dreamed of. The next day, Mrs. Kim happened to witness Yoonhae being insulted by a customer. Mrs. Kim couldn't imagine how much suffering her daughter, whom she had been separated from for 28 years, had endured. This was the first time the mother and daughter had officially met, and both were extremely nervous. Mrs. Kim was heartbroken when she saw the injuries on Yoonhae's arm. She immediately promised that she would never let Yoonhae get hurt again. "I won't let you suffer that kind of humiliation again." Yoonhae said she had grown accustomed to dealing with such customers. Mrs. Kim held Yoonhae's hand tightly, unwilling to let go. After things calmed down, Mrs. Kim told Yoonhae she wanted to meet her biological mother. Although Yoonhae desperately wanted to return to her biological mother's side, she knew her adoptive mother was unaware of the mix-up. If she suddenly learned the truth, it would be too much to bear. As they parted, Mrs. Kim lingered, reluctant to leave. She also promised Yoonhae that they would go eat something delicious together next time they met. When Mrs. Kim found out that Yoonhae's favorite food was cucumber kimchi, She was surprised. It turned out that Mrs. Kim's favorite food was also cucumber kimchi. Just then, Mrs. Kim suddenly heard a familiar voice. Neon's sudden appearance left Mrs. Kim at a loss. Mrs. Kim hurriedly explained that Yunhai was her friend's daughter and that she had only found out by chance. Neon had to admit that she and Yunhai really had a connection. She still felt that her mother was hiding something from her. Neon wanted to ask Yunhai what had just happened. Faced with her question, Yunhai quickly denied it. Yunhai had been very cold towards Neon since they first met. Neon, who was naive, thought that Yunhai was resentful because she had been set up on a blind date with Youngho. In order to ease the tension between them, Neon explained once again that she really didn't like Youngho. However, Yunhai said that sometimes you might take everything away from someone without knowing it. Neon asked why you would take something that didn't belong to you. She was so innocent that she couldn't imagine Yunhai's true intentions. Mrs. Kim returned home and discussed with her husband how to resolve the matter as soon as possible. She believed it was essential to explain the entire situation to Neon. If Neon heard anything from others, the harm she would suffer would be immense. Chairman Kim had also been considering how to handle the situation without causing further harm to everyone. However, Mrs. Kim took matters into her own hands and visited Yunhai's adoptive mother's home. Mrs. Kim was deeply moved by the living conditions at Soyoung's home and felt sorry for her daughter's life over the years. When she faced Soyoung, she couldn't bring herself to tell her the truth. No matter how Soyoung asked, Mrs. Kim refused to say anything. Finally, Soyoung couldn't stand it anymore and was about to leave when Mrs. Kim finally told her the truth. Your child was switched at the hospital when she was born. Soyoung thought Mrs. Kim was a woman of high status. She didn't expect her to say such a ridiculous thing. Mrs. Kim said that she didn't believe it at first either. It wasn't until she and her daughter underwent a paternity test that she believed Yunhai's words were true. Soyoung was so enraged that she immediately kicked Mrs. Kim out of the house, though she claimed not to believe it. No mother could accept such words. At the moment the cup fell to the ground, Soyoung seemed to snap back to reality. This reminded her of a few days earlier when Yunhai was in the hospital. She had noticed that Yunhai's blood type didn't match anyone else's in the family. At the time, she found it strange, but now she understood everything. Soyoung sat on the floor picking up the broken cup, her heart aching as she thought about Mrs. Kim's words. When she saw Yunhai again, she hid in the kitchen with tears in her eyes. Soyoung was afraid that her daughter would bring up the subject. She couldn't understand why she had raised her daughter for 28 years and then gone there. Soyoung couldn't believe that something like this could happen. It was late at night when Yunhai discovered that her mother had been hiding in the kitchen drinking. The mother and daughter, each with their own worries, drank glass after glass. Yunhai thanked her mother for raising her. Empowered by the alcohol, Yunhai was about to tell her the truth, but her mother deliberately interrupted her. Her mother beat out a rhythm and cried as she sang a song that Yunhai liked when she was little. Just like that, the mother and daughter sang with tears streaming down their faces. No one mentioned the incident again. But the next morning, Soyoung heard something she couldn't believe. Yunhai told her best friend Byunjin that she was leaving the house soon. She didn't want to be Cinderella anymore. She wanted to live like a princess. Although Byunjin didn't understand what Yunhai meant, Soyoung felt devastated when she heard those words. After thinking it over, she took off her apron and headed to Yunhai's workplace. At that moment, Mrs. Kim gave Yunhai a luxurious bag and a limited edition dress. Such an expensive bag was more than Yunhai's annual salary. Looking at the tag on the dress, Yunhai smiled with satisfaction. She knew that only she deserved this brand name. Neon, who she had envied and been jealous of, would soon give her back this affluent life. When Yunhai changed her clothes and stood in front of Mrs. Kim couldn't help but sigh that Yunhai was exactly like herself when she was young. But Yunhai didn't know that Soyoung was standing next to her and saw everything. At that moment, Soyoung realized that she could never give her daughter the life she wanted. Back home, Soyoung hid in the kitchen and cried silently. After calming down, she walked out of the room and saw a familiar face. Neon suddenly remembered that Soyoung was the woman who had bumped into her a few days ago, so she was Yunhai's mother. At that moment, Soyoung also remembered that it was because of this woman that Youngho had heartlessly abandoned Yunhai. She hurriedly got up and called Neon into the room. Then she took some salt and threw it at Neon. Soyoung angrily scolded Neon for ruining Yunhai's life. Because of you, my daughter almost lost her life. My daughter has been living in hell, but you live a carefree life. Neon, who had been pampered since childhood, had never been treated so unfairly. She never expected that the first person to scold her would be her own mother. The two of them fought fiercely, each saying harsh words to the other. Neon couldn't understand why the older woman was treating her like this. At this moment, Yunhai was enjoying dinner with her chaebol mother, but she couldn't bring herself to eat any of the exquisite food in front of her. She told Mrs. Kim that it was her first time at such a high-class restaurant. I was planning to get married this month. But after my boyfriend passed the bar exam, he started to look down on me and secretly went on a blind date with the daughter of a chaebol. That girl is now your daughter. Neon. Mrs. Kim realized that the person Neon had told her about was Yunhai. Because of this, Yunhai nearly died. But fortunately, a benefactor saved her. Upon learning of the hardships her daughter had endured, Mrs. Kim felt deeply guilty. Mrs. Kim promised to compensate her daughter for everything from this day forward. The moment Yunhai stepped out of the luxury car was witnessed by her younger sister. The younger sister looked at the designer handbag in Yunhai's hands and assumed it was fake. However, upon closer inspection, she realized it was genuine. But where did her sister get these expensive things? No matter how much her sister asked, Yunhai stood there and refused to say a word. Soyoung already knew that Yunhai was not her biological daughter. Moreover, Yunhai had hidden the fact that she had found her biological mother from her adoptive mother. She wanted to talk to her adoptive mother about it, but she refused. Just as Yunhai turned around, she discovered that Neon was in her house. It turned out that Neon had come to see Byungjin, the tenant of Yunhai's house. She looked at Yunhai carrying the same bag as her and felt very strange, but she didn't ask too many questions. Neon knew that Yunhai must have something to explain to her. But Yunhai said, "I'm doing this for your own good, so there are some things I can't just say. If you want to know what happened, you should ask your parents." Before leaving, Yunhai stopped again. She wanted Neon to know that the bag was a gift from Mrs. Kim. When she got home, Neon didn't eat or drink and just lay in bed. When her mother came over, she closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. Neon couldn't understand what was going on. She was distracted at work. Finally, Neon couldn't stand it anymore and went to her father's office. She wanted her father to tell her what was going on. Chairman Kim told his daughter that he had lived a long life and experienced many things. He had lost a lot, but he had also gained a lot. However, the best thing he had done in his life was having her as his daughter. Therefore, she was his greatest asset. He wanted Neon to know that even if he lost everything, he could not lose her. In fact, Neon had already prepared herself mentally. She still wanted to hear her father tell her what had happened. Chairman Kim knew that he could no longer hide the truth. With tears in his eyes, he told her the truth. Hearing her father's words, Neon was stunned. She never imagined that something like this could happen. Neon held back her tears and told her father that she wanted to calm down and needed more time to slowly accept it. Chairman Kim watched his daughter leave, his heart breaking. Soyoung learned from her younger daughter that Neon was the daughter of the family Byungjin tutored. Furthermore, Yunhai and Neon had been switched at birth. Yunhai couldn't wait to return to the wealthy family's home. She wanted to know what her adoptive mother thought about this matter. However, her adoptive mother remained silent, which made Yunhai feel very distressed. In fact, her adoptive mother was deeply disappointed in Yunhai's actions. Yunhai hadn't even asked her before going to find the wealthy mother to claim her as her own. This is a new beginning for you. But for Neon, it's like a bolt from the blue. Are you saying that you want to kick Neon out of the house? Yunhai asked her adoptive mother why she wasn't worried about her future. It's because Neon is your biological daughter and I'm not. That's why you're acting like this. Faced with Yunhai's unreasonable behavior, Soyoung was so angry that she slapped her. She sadly kicked Yunhai out of the house. The next day, the creditors tracked Yunhai down to her workplace. Yunhai was no longer the poor, helpless girl who could be bullied by anyone. She warned the creditors that if they dared to cause trouble, they would have to face the consequences. Yunhai's defiance directly angered the creditors. They wanted to see what this girl was capable of. Just then, Chairman Kim happened to pass by. Yunhai spotted Chairman Kim and spat in the face of one of the creditors. She then deliberately mocked them to provoke them further. The creditors attacked her even more viciously. Yunhai began screaming for help. Chairman Kim saw two men bullying a young girl and rushed over. When he got closer, he realized that the person being bullied was Yunhai. Chairman Kim was furious and couldn't wait to admit that he was Yunhai's father. The debt collectors thought that the two were deliberately putting on a show. They knew that Yunhai's father was a gambler. Just as they were about to attack Chairman Kim, Neon appeared and took a video, threatening to call the police if they didn't leave. Although Neon saved her father and Yunhai, she was so sad that she cried her eyes out. Chairman Kim wanted to explain, but Neon pushed her father away in disappointment. Yunhai took the opportunity to find Neon again and clearly stated that she wanted to take back everything that belonged to her. Neon asked Yunhai if she would still be in such a hurry to go back if her biological mother was still poor. The truth was right in front of her, and Yunhai couldn't deny it. But Yunhai asked her in return, "Is it because your parents are poor that you refuse to acknowledge them?" Yunhai tells her that what she needs now is not money, but her biological parents. What she wants is to live with her biological parents and receive their love and protection. Yunhai demands that Nian give her back everything that belongs to her. When Nian learns of her identity, her legs give way and she collapses to the ground. This suddenly reminds her of why her mother pushed her away when she was acting spoiled a few days ago. She also understands why her mother hugged Yunhai on the street. Nian didn't know where to go or how to face the rest of her life. She didn't want to go home for several days. Meanwhile, Mrs. Kim and Chairman Kim were waiting for Nian at home. Mrs. Kim was very worried because she couldn't contact Nian. Chairman Kim said that Nian was a very filial child and that she would definitely think of them first. Soon, Nian returned home. She didn't say anything, but just told her mother tearfully that she was hungry. However, when she returned to her room, she suddenly discovered that all her clothes were gone. In fact, Mrs. Kim hid the clothes because she was afraid that Nian would go looking for her biological parents. But Nian misunderstood her mother's intentions. Thinking of her mother's recent behavior and her father's reckless rescue of Yunhai, Nian was really afraid that she would lose them. At that moment, her tutor, Byungjin, knocked on Nian's door. He already knew what had happened. Byungjin told Nian that Soyeon wanted to meet her. Soyeon was very sorry for her rude behavior towards Nian last time. No matter what, her aunt was still her biological mother. So Byungjin wanted Nian to find time to go see her aunt. And so, Nian stepped into this dilapidated house. Soyeon turned around and saw her daughter and was stunned. The mother and daughter looked at each other. Nian wished so much that none of this was real. Soyeon knew that Nian was disappointed to have a mother like her. She cried incessantly, making Nian feel even more sad. Only then did Soyeon remember that she hadn't poured her daughter a glass of water, so she made Nian a cup of instant coffee. Nian said she only drank Genmaica coffee. Soyeon hurried to the coffee shop and bought 2 cups of the most expensive Genmaica coffee. At that moment, Nian was standing at the door when 2 drunks suddenly came out of the house. From their conversation, Nian realized that one was her brother-in-law and the other was her father. The last one to come out and lecture them was her sister. Nian couldn't believe that she had such relatives. On her way back, Soyeon ran into Yunhai. She hurriedly urged Yunhai to go back to her room to rest. Then Soyeon quickly asked Byungjin to give the coffee to Nian. She also told Byungjin not to let Nian go home alone. When Nian left, she couldn't help but look back. Soyeon was hiding behind the curtains. Unexpectedly, Yunhai saw this. Nian was still holding the coffee Soyeon had just bought. When Soyeon turned around, she was startled by Yunhai. Yunhai had always used cheap things since she was a child, while her mother had bought expensive coffee for her biological daughter. Mrs. Kim wanted to bring Yunhai back to live with them, but Chairman Kim asked his wife, "What about Nian?" Mrs. Kim said that they could all live together from now on. Her husband questioned her about the feelings of Yunhai's adoptive parents. Mrs. Kim didn't care about others' opinions. The next day, she went to negotiate with Yunhai's adoptive mother. She directly told Soyeon that she wanted to take Yunhai home to live with her. Hearing this, Soyeon was stunned. But what she didn't expect was that the selfish Mrs. Kim also wanted to keep Nian with her. Soyeon was so angry that she threw a cup of water in Mrs. Kim's face. "Don't you think about how the 2 children will suffer living together?" No matter what, Soyeon couldn't agree. The 2 of them stood there in a standoff for a while, when Nian suddenly pushed open the door. It turned out that Mrs. Kim had not only called Nian, but also Yunhai. She wanted the 2 children to choose for themselves who they wanted to live with. Soyeon couldn't believe how Mrs. Kim could be so cruel to the 2 children. Why make them make such a sudden choice? Soyeon wanted to take Yunhai away from there, but Yunhai refused to get up and even pulled her hand away. She kept apologizing to Soyeon because she wanted to live in a mansion. At that moment, Soyeon's heart was broken. Mrs. Kim took the opportunity to tell Soyeon to take Yunhai away. Nian asked Mrs. Kim why she didn't ask her opinion first. Mrs. Kim immediately said, "I thought you would forgive me." Nian said that she didn't want Yunhai to ruin her current life. Soyeon knew that it was her own incompetence that had caused her to lose her daughter. She slowly got up, her legs weak, and walked out with difficulty. Seeing her mother so sad, Yunhai still doesn't go out, but kind Nian can't help herself. She gets up and leaves to find her biological mother. Soyeon walks down the street in a daze and is almost hit by a passing motorcycle. Luckily, Nian pulls her mother back in time to prevent a tragedy. Nian is very sorry for the pain she has caused Soyeon. In this situation, she really doesn't know what to do. To prevent Soyeon from feeling hurt, Nian said she hadn't wasted a single drop of the coffee. "I can't accept this reality yet. I need a little more time." At that moment, Soyeon couldn't say a word. She walked up to Nian and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. Nian also reached out and hugged her poor biological mother. Soon, the family found out about what had happened. Yunhai's older sister believed that Yunhai had been blinded by money. Even if you have no blood relation with your mother, she raised you for 28 years. How could you be so heartless and just leave like that? What will your mother do now? Yunhai's older sister made Yunhai explain in front of the entire family whether she really intended to leave home and live with that family. Yunhai angrily said that she shouldn't have to live such a poor life. Now she just wants to return to the mansion and enjoy the life of a wealthy heiress. The first thing Yunhai did was quit her 10-year job at the library. Then she went to her father's publishing company and had Taehan take her on a tour. Taehan had already known about the fake heiress situation. When Neon was at her lowest point, it was Taehan who stayed by her side. But when Neon saw Yunhai at the publishing company, she was still surprised. However, she decided to agree to return to the mansion and live with Yunhai. Yunhai wanted to know why she had suddenly changed her mind. Neon felt that her own happiness was important, but she was more concerned about her parents. Yunhai's next plan was to get a job at the publishing company. Since she had no education, she hoped Taehan could help her, but Taehan did not refuse her outright. The two then went to the cafeteria to eat. A strange woman suddenly appeared beside Taehan. His colleagues couldn't help but start gossiping, but Neon didn't say a word. Just then, a colleague accidentally bumps into Taehan. Yunhai rushes over to help, which makes Taehan very embarrassed. Neon sees this and takes note of it. After returning home, Taehan wants to explain what happened to Neon. After leaving the publishing company, Yunhai goes to her wealthy mother's house. Seeing the mansion in front of her, she wonders what kind of people live there. Yunhai proudly says that this is her home. The driver said that he could tell from her aura that she was a rich girl. Yunhai was so happy that she gave the driver back the change he had given her. It was the first time she had ever been complimented, and she was overjoyed. Standing at the door, Yunhai suddenly remembered what Neon had said. She was the owner of this house, so why did she need someone else's approval to return home? Yunhai was determined to find a way to get Neon out of the house. Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim were very happy to see their daughter return. Mrs. Kim not only showed Yunhai every corner of the house but also let her visit Neon's room. As soon as she entered, Mrs. Kim noticed the coffee cup on the table with a sticky note saying "Don't throw away." Yunhai immediately recognized it as something her foster mother had bought for Neon. She also took this opportunity to try to sow discord between Mrs. Kim and Neon. Mrs. Kim angrily threw the coffee cup into the trash can. The next day, Yunhai packed her luggage and prepared to leave the home that had raised her for 30 years. Unexpectedly, she suddenly heard her adoptive mother's screams. When Yunhai went outside, she found her adoptive mother lying on the ground. What was even more shocking was that her adoptive mother couldn't see anything. Yunhai and Byunjin rushed her to the hospital. It turned out that Soyeon's eyesight had been deteriorating, and due to the worsening condition, she might go blind soon. She couldn't accept this reality. If she went blind, how would she support her family? Seeing Soyeon's emotional state, the doctor wanted to speak with her family about her condition, but Soyeon didn't want to burden her daughter and begged the doctor to keep it a secret. After leaving, she told Yunhai not to worry, saying the doctor said she just needed to take some medicine. But once back home, Soyeon hid in her room and couldn't help but shed tears. When Yunhai came in, she quickly wiped away her tears. Since they couldn't afford new clothes, her foster mother could only prepare a set of pajamas for Yunhai. She had seen on TV that wealthy families wore such clothes when sleeping. Soyeon didn't want to burden Yunhai and coldly said, "Since you've decided to live with your biological parents, we shouldn't see each other anymore." Actually, Soyeon didn't want Yunhai to know that she was going to lose her sight. She told Yunhai to bury her mother in her heart and never come back or call. Yunhai asked her why she had to do this. Soyeon said against her conscience, "Mom is a person with self-respect. Every time she sees you, she compares herself to others." That night, Yunhai entrusted Byunjin with the savings she had accumulated over the years to give to her mother. When they parted, Soyeon took out a jar of Yunhai's favorite pickled cucumbers. She looked at Yunhai with a look of reluctance on her face. Perhaps she would never see her daughter again. Yunhai told her adoptive mother to take good care of herself. At the last moment of their separation, both mother and daughter were reluctant to part. Soyeon was so heartbroken that tears streamed down her face. Yunhai then rode in a luxury car back to the home she had always dreamed of. Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim were overjoyed to see their daughter return. Only Neon felt uneasy. Chairman Kim, aware of Neon's feelings, held her hand while helping Yunhai pack her clothes. Mrs. Kim told her to keep the old clothes and that she would take her shopping for new ones tomorrow. Mrs. Kim also thoughtfully prepared a set of branded pajamas for Yunhai. Yunhai took the pajamas and hid the clothes her foster mother had bought behind her back. Looking around the room at the branded furniture and touching the soft bed, Yunhai instantly forgot the home that raised her. Early the next morning, Yunhai went to the kitchen to help her mother. But Mrs. Kim couldn't bear to let her daughter do such rough work, so she asked her to go upstairs and call Nian and her brother downstairs to eat. As a result, when Yunhai called Nian downstairs to eat, she was mocked. Nian said, "You've only been here for one day, but you act like you own this house, while I'm treated like a guest." Yunhai said, "I am the master of this house. Now, the one who is under someone else's roof is you, not me. How dare you act like you need my forgiveness? How dare you pretend to tolerate me? This is my home, and I am the real daughter of this family." Just then, Mrs. Kim came upstairs. Yunhai saw her mother and quickly changed her attitude. Putting on a weak and helpless expression, she asked Nian why she didn't say she hated her earlier and why she put up with her coming to live in this house. Then Yunhai said what was in Nian's heart. Yunhai knew that Nian had always wanted to kick her out, so Nian also said what was in her heart. She really hated Yunhai. If it weren't for her parents, she would never have agreed to let Yunhai come back to live in this house. Mrs. Kim not only hit Nian for the first time but also ordered her not to treat Yunhai like that anymore. Nian cried bitterly. She had never been hit by her mother before. Chairman Kim rushed upstairs to his daughter's room upon hearing the news. He intended to comfort Nian, but through their interactions over the past few days, Nian had already seen through everything. No matter how well she behaved as an adopted daughter, she could never compare to a biological child. Yunhai's appearance made Nian feel very uneasy. She was afraid that Yunhai would shake up her life and take everything away from her. But Nian told her father that she would leave this house. She wanted to fulfill her dreams and not be controlled by anyone. At this moment, Chairman Kim seemed to realize the seriousness of the situation. He had thought that both of his daughters were of marriageable age. Even if Yunhai came back, she wouldn't live at home for long. But the reality was perhaps not as simple as he had imagined. Then, her father came to Yunhai's room. Hearing her father's voice, Yunhai hurriedly took out a book and pretended to be studying. She told her father that she also had a dream and wanted to become a publishing editor. She also said that she had signed up for a publishing editing class a few days ago. Hearing this, her father was very happy. In fact, what Yunhai meant was that she wanted to work at her father's publishing company. There were also many opportunities to learn there. Now her father had entrusted all recruitment matters to Taehan. As she was going downstairs, Yunhai happened to run into her mother, who was going to bring Nian her meal. So she told her mother not to worry, that she would bring it over and apologize to Nian. But Nian thought she was being insincere. Yunhai was about to go out when she accidentally spilled some juice. The juice landed on Nian's diary. Yunhai not only read the notes Nian had written, but also secretly took it and hid it in her bag. Ever since Yunhai was reunited with her biological parents, her life has changed dramatically. Whenever she has time, Mrs. Kim takes her to major shopping malls to shop. Not only does Yunhai wear designer clothes from head to toe, but she also has more money in her bank account. Looking at the 30 million won balance in her bank account, Yunhai thinks to herself that it would take her 10 years to save that much money. She even went to the most expensive hair salon in Korea to get her hair styled. Mrs. Kim enthusiastically introduced them to the staff as mother and daughter. But Mrs. Kim didn't know that Nian was also inside, and that Nian had cut her hair short. She awkwardly approached Nian and explained that she had brought Yunhai to get her hair done. Nian closed her eyes and didn't want to hear her mother's explanation. Yunhai and Nian sat together, both feeling very uncomfortable. On the surface, they appeared to be getting along, but in reality, they both wanted to kick the other out of the house. When Mrs. Kim went to pay for her daughter's haircuts, she realized that Nian had left an hour ago. After getting her hair done, Yunhai looked like a different person. The more Mrs. Kim looked at her, the more she looked like herself when she was young. When she heard that the perm would cost 450,000 won even with the discount, Yunhai was shocked. She couldn't earn that much in a month working part-time. This huge difference in their lives instantly satisfied Yunhai's vanity. Seeing her mother buy so many things for herself every time, Yunhai couldn't help but feel happy. She never imagined that being the daughter of a rich family would be so wonderful. After leaving the salon, Yunhai was asked out by her ex-boyfriend. When he saw that Nian had cut her hair short, Youngho was stunned. He felt that Nian was like a different person. Nian wanted to know why Youngho kept calling her. The thick-skinned Youngho took this opportunity to confess his feelings to Nian again. Nian didn't understand where Youngho got the confidence to keep confessing his feelings to her. Nian bluntly said that he had no appeal to her, and the life she was about to have held no appeal for Youngho either. Youngho didn't know that Nian was a fake rich girl. If he found out that the Yunhai he had abandoned was a rich girl, he would probably regret it deeply. Nian decided to tell Youngho the truth to completely get rid of this man. The two then went to Taehan's family restaurant. Taehan saw this despicable man and almost vomited in disgust. Youngho, on the other hand, looked down on Taehan with contempt. Ever since he passed the bar exam, he had looked down on everyone. He believed that only he was worthy of Miss Neon. But Youngho had no idea that even the bathroom in Taehan's mansion was bigger than his entire apartment. Coincidentally, Yunhai had called Taehan before they arrived. Yunhai wanted to work at her father's publishing company, but she needed Taehan's permission. When the drunk Youngho saw Yunhai, he started mocking her again. You can only date someone like Taehan. Miss Neon is much more charming than you. She's better than you in every way. As Youngho was talking, he accidentally tripped and fell to the ground. Neon felt that bringing Youngho here had ruined her reputation. She would find a way to get rid of him without anyone's help. All of this was witnessed by Taehan's mother. She already had a bad impression of Neon, and this incident made her even more disgusted. Sunja, on the other hand, thought Yunhai looked pretty good. Taehan didn't want to see Neon being harassed by Youngho. After putting Youngho in a taxi, he was about to take Neon home, but Neon asked him if he wasn't going to check on Yunhai. Only then did Taehan remember that Yunhai was still at home. At that moment, Yunhai was standing at the door, waiting for Taehan. Yunhai wants Taehan to help her get a job at the publishing company, but Taehan, who has always been serious about his work, doesn't allow anyone to overstep their bounds. He tells Yunhai to bring her resume to the publishing company tomorrow. Neon then realizes that Yunhai also wants to work at the publishing company. She can't help but wonder what Yunhai's real intentions are. Before leaving, Taehan tells Neon that she can contact him if she wants to drink in the future. Just as the two were about to part ways, Yunhai arrived in a taxi. Seeing Taehan with Neon, her jealousy got the better of her, and she was furious. Yunhai deliberately questioned Neon in front of Taehan, asking her why she didn't say hello when she came back. Taehan then found out that Yunhai had moved into a mansion. Youngho also quickly learned about Yunhai's identity from Byungjin. He never dreamed that something like this would happen to him. When he saw Yunhai again, dressed in designer clothes, he was stunned. Youngho saw Yunhai leave and followed her without hesitation. But Yunhai was no longer a woman he could get. Yunhai advised Youngho to pursue Neon instead. Youngho explained to Yunhai that he had just taken out a loan to buy a luxury apartment. Yunhai tells him to let go of her and get out of her sight. The stench coming from you makes me sick. Yunhai thanks Youngho for breaking off the engagement. As the saying goes, there is no harm in comparison. Yunhai, who grew up in a poor family, gets up early in the morning to prepare meals for her family. Neon, who has been spoiled since childhood, sleeps late in her room. Mrs. Kim wants to wake Neon up for breakfast, but Neon was still sleepy and talking in her sleep. She begged her biological mother to give her some time to slowly accept the situation. Hearing Neon's words, Mrs. Kim let go of her hand and turned to leave the room. With the help of the nanny, Yunhai set the table for everyone. To thank her mother for giving birth to her, she even cooked seaweed soup, but Neon took a sip and said that the soup had no taste. She even got up to go to the kitchen to re-season it. Mrs. Kim snatched the soup from Neon's hands. If you think it's so bad, just pour it out. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Chairman Kim didn't understand why his wife was always being so hard on Neon. Yunhai's presence was already making Neon feel uneasy. Even if Neon isn't our biological child, we shouldn't treat her like this. Mrs. Kim had tears in her eyes but refused to say a word. Neon couldn't understand why her mother was acting this way. Her brother told Neon that Yunhai had specially cooked the soup to thank her parents. Neon finally understood why her mother had acted so suddenly today. Even her brother thought Neon had gone too far. When Neon ran out of the house in tears, she bumped into Taehan. Taehan guessed she must have been wronged, but helplessly, he could only hand her a handkerchief. On the way, Neon accidentally twisted her ankle. Taehan couldn't help but blame her for wearing high heels. Neon asked him why he was standing in front of her house early in the morning. Just then, the two suddenly stopped in their tracks. Neon realized she had said the wrong thing. Seeing that Taehan was determined not to speak, Neon closed her mouth. When she arrived at the company, Neon realized that the diary she always carried with her was missing. It contained all the information she had accumulated over the years, but no matter how hard she thought, she couldn't remember where she had put it. Yunhai stole Neon's diary and replaced the cover. Having Neon's notes was a huge help to Yunhai in practicing her writing. Seeing that Neon was still in a bad mood, Taehan couldn't help but ask her why she refused to accept her biological parents. Neon didn't hide anything and told him about her biological parents' current situation. If she accepted them now, the debt would fall on her shoulders. At that time, She might lose her right to inherit the publishing company. Nian didn't expect herself to be so greedy. She was also afraid of becoming the daughter of a poor family. Taehan asked her if she had ever thought about Yunhai's feelings. Yunhai had been living in poverty for more than 20 years in her place. Nian said it wasn't her fault. Yunhai needs Taehan and Nian's approval to get into the publishing company. Nian doesn't want to review Yunhai's proposal either. But Taehan doesn't want her to shirk responsibility. Whether to hire Yunhai is now up to Nian. That day, Yunhai finally agreed to visit her foster mother at her friend's urging, but she found that her foster mother could no longer see anything. Soyoung accidentally knocked over a plate and fell to the ground. Nian and Byungjin heard the noise and rushed over to check. Yunhai, who was outside the door, saw this and was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. She was about to open the door and rush toward her foster mother but stopped in her tracks. Yunhai thought about how hard she had worked to live a rich life and didn't want to have anything to do with her adoptive mother's family. She kept reassuring herself that the doctor had clearly said that her adoptive mother was just getting old and her eyesight was failing. Her adoptive mother must have been under a lot of stress lately, which caused her condition to worsen. Soyoung pretended that nothing was wrong so as not to worry the children. She told Nian not to worry about her. She also hoped that Nian would forget about this family and go back to her own life. Soyoung asked Nian to speak up if she had anything to say. In fact, Nian had come to tell her father not to go to Chairman Kim for money. If he wanted to extort money, he should go to the hospital that had mistakenly swapped the babies. However, her father had no intention of asking Chairman Kim for money. He simply felt it was unfair that both children were living in Chairman Kim's family. This was because Yunhai's adoptive father had a gambling addiction. So Chairman Kim misunderstood that he had come today for money. Don't even mention others not believing him. Even Soyoung refused to believe his lies. Upon learning that her husband had gone to ask someone for money, Soyoung nearly died from anger. Nian stated that she couldn't accept the current state of this family. So I beg you, please pretend you don't know me. The conversation between the few people was overheard by her younger sister who had just gotten off work. As a result, Nian turned around, and her sister grabbed the shoe she was holding and smashed it hard on her head. Then she scolded Nian thoroughly. Nian had never been treated unfairly since she was a child. Byungjin saw the wound on her head and hurriedly brought medicine to disinfect it. He thought Nian was upset because she had been treated unfairly, but she was worried about her mother's condition. She wanted to ask Byungjin to take her mother to the hospital for a checkup, but Byungjin did not agree to her request. He wanted Nian to take Soyoung to the hospital herself. After hesitating for a long time, Nian decided she should tell Yunhai about it. Yunhai said she already knew about it, and she had already taken her mother to the hospital before. The next day, Yunhai went to the hospital again to confirm her foster mother's condition. The doctor's words left her feeling completely shattered. Yunhai walked out of the hospital in a daze. At that moment, she finally understood why her foster mother had refused to let her come home and why she had cut off all contact with her. In that instant, Yunhai's heart shattered completely. Nian secretly brought some high-quality Wagyu beef to the house. Even though she had been hated by the entire family and had been spoken to harshly, Nian couldn't bring herself to cut off ties with her family. She touched the bottles and jars in the kitchen, feeling her mother's warmth. Nian not only saw the eye drops her mother used but also the prescription the doctor had given her. She immediately went to the pharmacy to ask what condition the eye drops were for. Upon learning that her mother was about to go blind, Nian also broke down. Yunhai couldn't help but return to visit her adoptive mother again. She asked her adoptive mother if it was because of her eyes that she planned to never see her again. Soyoung said angrily, "You're right, I can't be a burden on you for the rest of your life." Soyoung told Yunhai that no matter what happened, she would live her life well. She couldn't drag down someone else's child because of herself. If that was the case, she would rather die sooner. Soyoung hoped that Yunhai would think carefully about it. You finally escaped poverty. Do you want to come back and suffer again? As long as you can live happily, that's enough. Seeing her adoptive mother slam the door, Yunhai was so sad that she burst into tears. Soyoung regretted saying such harsh words. She couldn't help but run back to see Yunhai one last time. But Yunhai had already left. Soyoung had just finished dealing with Yunhai when she returned to find Nian waiting there. Nian had come because she was worried that Soyoung would go blind. Soyoung hurriedly told her that her eyes were completely fine, but Nian still stood there and refused to leave. Soyoung angrily said that she didn't want to recognize her as her daughter. She hurriedly kicked Nian out of the house. The family couldn't understand why Soyoung would do such a thing. "Mom, haven't you always wanted her back? If you don't try to stop her now, she might never come back." But no one expected Nian to not only stay but also bring the Wagyu beef she had just bought to share with everyone for a barbecue. When the family heard that Nian had bought premium Wagyu beef, they all started drooling. When it was time to eat, Everyone scrambled for the meat like refugees. Seeing that everyone was too busy eating to speak, Neon joined in the scramble. She even snatched a piece from her brother-in-law's chopsticks and put it in Byunjin's mouth. Then Neon carried the plate to her mother's room. Seeing that her mother wouldn't eat, she picked up a piece and put it in her mother's mouth. Actually, Neon also wanted to continue living as Soyoung's daughter, but she wasn't sure what to do and was still considering which home to live in. Soyoung was surprised that Neon had suddenly made such a decision. Neon said it was because she was her daughter. Yunhai didn't know what to do next, whether to go back and take care of her adoptive mother or continue living here. Just then, Mrs. Kim pushed open the door. Mrs. Kim knew that Yunhai took the bus or subway every time she went out, which was very inconvenient. So Mrs. Kim said she would take her to buy a car tomorrow. Yunhai had never dared to dream of owning a car of her own. All of this was like a dream come true for Yunhai. Yunhai, overcome with emotion, instantly forgot her earlier worries. Byunjin and Neon talked a lot on the way home. He had always thought Neon was very kind and had always liked this innocent girl. However, he felt that he wasn't qualified to confess his feelings to Neon yet. Byunjin told Neon that he would call her as soon as the exam results came out the next day. The next day, Yunhai and Neon got into an argument over who would go back to take care of Soyoung. Neon felt that Soyoung cared most about Yunhai. Now, it was more appropriate for Yunhai to return to Soyoung's side. Yunhai felt that Neon was thinking only of herself. Are you trying to take advantage of my mother's blindness to kick me out of here? For me and my adoptive mother, this illness was like a bolt from the blue, but you see it as an opportunity to stay here. Neon explains that she doesn't mean it that way. After all, your adoptive mother raised you. If you don't go back, you'll regret it in the future. Yunhai says that even if she goes back, her adoptive mother's eyes won't heal. Besides, doesn't she still have her sister and younger sister at home? And now there's you too. Yunhai is tired of that place and doesn't want to go back home. Yunhai doesn't sleep all night and goes out for a run at dawn with tears streaming down her face. After running for an unknown distance, Yunhai suddenly saw Taehyun. At that moment, Yunhai suddenly remembered that a few nights ago, she had encountered Taehyun's mother at her front door. Moreover, Sunja had said that her house was just a short distance ahead. Yunhai never imagined that Taehyun's family owned such a large villa. On her way back, Yunhai happened to run into Neon. Curious, she asked Neon if Taehyun was a wealthy young master. Neon replied that Taehyun was just the son of the rice cake shop owner and wasn't a rich playboy at all. In fact, Taehyun had never developed feelings for any woman. In others' eyes, he was a cold-hearted man. However, he was exceptionally capable at his job and demanded strict standards from his subordinates. Chairman Kim had chosen Taehyun precisely for this reason. He had entrusted him with managing the publishing company so that Neon could learn from him and eventually inherit the business. Originally, due to their differing opinions, the two often argued, but over time, Taehyun gradually fell for this innocent girl. Neon also began to develop indescribable feelings for him. One day, the two accidentally touched hands over a cup of coffee. In that moment, their two passionate hearts collided. Neon, coming to her senses, tried to step back, but Taehyun grabbed her hand. A deep kiss expressed their love for each other. Just then, Byunjin suddenly called. Neon's hands trembled and she accidentally dropped the phone on the floor. Seeing Byunjin's name, she panicked and didn't answer. Byunjin wanted to tell Neon the good news that he had passed the bar exam and then confess his feelings to her, but he never imagined that he was one step behind. After returning home, Neon made an important decision. Yunhai never dreamed that she would have her own car. When she got home, Yunhai invited her father to attend her test drive. Chairman Kim then realized that his wife had bought Yunhai a new car. Although he didn't say anything, he didn't approve of the purchase. At this moment, Neon came home to visit her mother, who was about to go blind. Soyoung held her daughter's hand and felt very secure. She even changed into the new clothes Neon had bought for her and went out with her to relax. Soyoung wanted to visit her daughter's workplace while she could still see, so Neon took her mother to the publishing company. Her mother asked Neon if she had a boyfriend. Seeing her daughter blush, Soyoung guessed she must have someone she liked. Neon also told her mother about her relationship with Taehyun. But just as they were about to go downstairs, they bumped into Taehyun. Soyoung, seeing her future son-in-law's handsome appearance, immediately took a liking to him. Her mother's behavior made Neon feel very embarrassed. Neon was about to take her mother to the office when she was called by a familiar voice. It turned out that Yunhai had been brought here by Mrs. Kim to practice driving. Seeing the new clothes on her adoptive mother, Yunhai immediately knew that Neon had bought them. She told her adoptive mother with envy that she could now afford this brand too. Yunhai happily told her adoptive mother that she would take her out for a drive in the future. Soyoung felt that she might not be lucky enough to ride in that car. Unexpectedly, Yunhai misunderstood her adoptive mother's meaning. She thought that her mother would rather ride in Nian's car than her own. She could accept the clothes Nian bought and hate the ones she bought. Yunhai resented Nian for stealing her mother's affection. She didn't want to see Nian with her mother. Soyoung was curious as to why Yunhai was meeting with the editor-in-chief. Yunhai tells her adoptive mother that she plans to work here, and that Taehan is the person she has mentioned before. Soyoung never imagined that her two daughters would fall in love with the same man. What should she do about this headache? When the mother and daughter are ready to return, they run into Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim sees that Soyoung is wearing clothes bought by Nian. This makes her very angry. Mrs. Kim tells Soyoung that this is a workplace and not just anyone can come in. The children's affairs are not public knowledge, and if people find out, it won't be good for anyone. Nian happens to hear Mrs. Kim's words. Nian angrily tells Mrs. Kim that she brought Soyoung here herself. Mrs. Kim asks her if she wants to spread the news. If people find out that you are not Chairman Kim's daughter, how will they look at you? If your father wasn't the owner of this company, no one would treat you well. Nian couldn't believe that her mother, who had always loved her, could say such a thing. Even if the truth got out, she would still be her father's daughter. She didn't care about other people, only what her parents thought. If her father insisted on his original plan, she would not hesitate to accept the publishing company. Mrs. Kim thought that since Nian didn't care, she might as well take this opportunity to sort things out. That way, she could move Yunhai's household registration back. Mrs. Kim hoped that Soyeon would also go back and get ready. That day, Yunhai accidentally overheard her father saying that he would leave the publishing company with the most potential to Nian, who was not related to him by blood. Chairman Kim believed that his son and Yunhai would not be able to run the publishing company. However, Mrs. Kim couldn't understand how her husband could abandon his own child and give half of his fortune to Nian, who was not related to him by blood. Chairman Kim said that Nian was like his own daughter to him. For 28 years, I never thought that Nian wasn't my child. I will never let Nian leave this family. Yunhai was very disappointed to hear her chaebol father's words. Since coming to this family, she had racked her brains to please everyone. Why was she still not as important to her father as a fake daughter? Mrs. Kim felt that now that things had come to this, it was better to end it early. She said that no matter what happened in the future, she would not treat Nian badly. But why did you insist on inheriting the publishing company? Nian told Mrs. Kim that running a publishing company was her childhood dream. No matter whether you love me or not in the future, I will never give up my dream. Back in her room, Nian felt more and more uneasy. She took Yunhai's resume and rushed into her room. Seeing Nian come in, Yunhai quickly hid her diary. But the project plan on the resume was clearly Nian's idea, so the first person she suspected was Yunhai. To her surprise, Yunhai falsely accused Nian of stealing her proposal. Seeing Yunhai refuse to admit it, Nian decided to take a look at her diary. This left Yunhai completely panicked. Just as Nian was about to grab the diary from the table, Mrs. Kim rushed over and snatched it back. Mrs. Kim angrily exclaimed, "You've been bullying my son all this time, and now you want to bully Yunhai?" She thought that Nian had framed Yunhai in order to get the publishing company. "You don't remember how I raised you, and this is how you repay me?" At that moment, Nian was stunned. She knew that she no longer had any place in her mother's heart. Yunhai, on the other hand, was secretly rejoicing. Just then, Byungjin called to say that Yunhai's father had been arrested by the police for gambling, but Yunhai refused to go no matter what. After hanging up, she told Nian about it. "Your biological father is in trouble, you should go see him right away." Tae-hun, upon learning that Nian had framed Yunhai, found it hard to believe. Given his understanding of Nian, he couldn't imagine her doing such a thing. Yunhai, however, looked wronged, feeling that everyone was taking Nian's side, regardless of whether it was true or not. What Yunhai said was likely to cause others to suspect Nian. To avoid this, Taehan wanted to find out what was really going on, but Nian felt that she didn't need to explain herself anymore. Nian told Taehan that he could review Yunhai's application fairly and that she would also treat her fairly. Unexpectedly, Taehan chose to step aside and leave the decision to Nian. Yunhai returned home with a heavy heart, only to encounter Taehan's mother at the door. Sunja was very happy to see Yunhai. She even invited her to a homemade dinner at their house that evening. In an effort to please Taehan's mother, Yunhai carefully prepared a seafood hot pot according to the recipe. Unexpectedly, Sunja had been craving this dish for a long time. During dinner, Sunja kept serving Yunhai. Yunhai learned from Sunja that Taehan has no interest in marriage and only knows how to work hard every day. But this year, she must arrange Taehan's marriage no matter what. In fact, Sunja was hinting that she had already chosen Yunhai as her ideal daughter-in-law. On the way home with Nian, Taehan officially confessed his feelings. Although this decision made him hesitate for a long time, he realized that the most important place in his heart was already taken by Neon. Before they parted, Taehan couldn't help but hug Neon, and this scene was witnessed by Yunhai, who had just returned home. At that moment, she hated Neon with all her heart. Just then, Neon came to Yunhai's room, setting aside personal grudges. Neon felt that some of the ideas in Yunhai's proposal were worthwhile, so she decided to officially hire Yunhai. But Yunhai looked at her with a vicious gaze. Neon saw that Yunhai's face was covered in tears and wanted to help wipe them away, but Yunhai pushed her away. At this moment, Yunhai's emotions were completely out of control. She wanted Neon to disappear from in front of her immediately. In order to have a life like Neon's, Yunhai had heartlessly abandoned her adoptive mother. She was the daughter of this family, so why did she have to make her life so miserable? Neon asked her, "What do you want me to do to make you happy?" Yunhai replied, "I want you to suffer the same way I did." So Neon decided to grant Yunhai's wish. She told her father that she wanted to move out of the house and go back to live with her biological parents. Yunhai told her mother that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't bring herself to like Neon. She had tried her best, but she still couldn't measure up to her. Every time she sees her, she feels like a clown who is being laughed at by everyone. Mrs. Kim doesn't know how to comfort her two daughters when she sees how bad their relationship has become. She can only do her best to compensate Yunhai. If Yunhai wants to go to college or marry someone, she will do whatever she can to make it happen. Mrs. Kim hopes that Yunhai will stop comparing herself to Neon. No matter what others think, her mother will always be by her side to protect her. When Chairman Kim heard that Neon was moving in with her biological parents, he flew into a rage. No matter what Neon wanted, he would not allow her to become someone else's child. Mrs. Kim happened to overhear their conversation. Although Mrs. Kim favored Yunhai, Neon was the child she had raised with her own hands. However, her mother's favoritism toward Yunhai made Neon feel very uncomfortable. Neon wanted to keep only the memories of her mother's love in her heart. Even if Mrs. Kim rented her an apartment, she still wanted to live with her biological parents. After all these years, you've never let me do any housework. Why do you insist on going to live in such a miserable place? Neon didn't want to take up someone else's life or put her parents in a difficult position. Only Uncle Miho knew about the bad things Yunhai had done. Not long ago, he accidentally saw Neon's diary on Yunhai's desk. Therefore, Miho knew very well about the theft of the project plan. He wanted to bury this in his heart and never tell anyone, but Yunhai used every trick in the book to deal with Neon, and Miho couldn't take it anymore. He advised Yunhai to behave herself and not do things like this for her own sake. Yunhai was caught red-handed by Miho and collapsed on the floor. Chairman Kim announced at the dinner table that Neon would inherit the publishing company. Taemin and Yunhai would inherit the other properties. Neon was not to mention running away from home again. If she did, her father would no longer treat her as his own daughter. Although no one dared to say anything, Taemin was very dissatisfied with Chairman Kim's decision. He and Yunhai are the only biological children in this family. Taemin cannot stand by and watch the family's property be taken away. If his mother doesn't dare to remove Neon's household registration, he will take matters into his own hands. Mrs. Kim cannot let her son be the bad guy. If your father finds out, it will be the end of you. For the sake of her two children, Mrs. Kim has no choice but to go to Soyoung herself to resolve the household registration issue. Soyoung is about to go blind. She didn't want to burden her children with her condition. This was also the main reason why Soyoung refused to acknowledge Neon. However, Mrs. Kim thought that Soyoung refused to transfer Neon's household registration because she wanted to keep her future property. She clearly told Soyoung that even if she donated her money to the common people, it would not go to her family. She begged her to stop using her children as an excuse to play the victim. After hearing this, Soyoung angrily threw dinner at Mrs. Kim. Yunhai's first day at work was full of obstacles. Neon just asked her to get the film roll, but she accidentally dropped it on the floor. In order not to delay the work, Yunhai had no choice but to pick up the film roll from the floor and reprint it. Before leaving work, Neon gave Yunhai the work for the next 4 days in advance. But Yunhai thought that Neon was taking revenge on her and deliberately making things difficult for her. The more Neon acted like this, the more Yunhai wanted to stay at the publishing company. Neon didn't want to argue with Yunhai about her attitude. She gave her 2 books and told her to do her work well. Before leaving, Yunhai ran into Tae-hun, who had just finished work. She wanted to give him a ride, but he refused. Soon, Yunhai arrived at Tae-hun's snack bar. Sunja was very happy to see Yunhai. The two sat together and had a few drinks. Sunja could tell that Yunhai had her eyes on her son. Yunhai didn't deny it. Sunja said that if Yunhai could make her happy, she would give her son to her. Yunhai didn't expect to get Tae-hun's mother's approval. To please Sunja, Yunhai put on an apron and busied herself in the shop. But Sunja called her men and told them to find out everything they could about Yunhai. When Taehan came back and saw Yunhai dressed like that, he was very surprised. His mother told Taehan to take Yunhai home quickly, because Yunhai had just been drinking. She couldn't drive herself. Taehan was even more surprised when he found out that Yunhai was going to his house for dinner on the weekend. Yunhai hurriedly explains that she was invited by his aunt. Unexpectedly, Nian sees Taehan driving Yunhai home. Taehan wants to explain, but Nian is very angry. She decides to ask Yunhai about it when she gets home. Nian wants to tell Yunhai that she and Taehan are dating, but before she can say anything, Yunhai beats her to it. Yunhai hoped that Nian would take the initiative to draw a line between herself and Taehan in the future. You took away my life and the publishing company, but I will never allow you to take away the man I love. Chairman Kim's decision made his eldest son very unhappy. Taemin felt that his father had never looked at him with respect in all these years. Why did he want a person who was not related to him by blood to inherit his life's work? In the past, I was the older brother, so I put up with it. But Nian is not my sister. Chairman Kim was so angry that he slapped his son across the face and told him to pack his bags and get out of the house. Nian knew that it was all her fault that her family was in this situation. She felt that she was still young and could build a publishing company through her own efforts. Nian begged her father not to try to keep her. Only when she sorted out her household registration and left home would her parents and brother be able to live comfortably in the future. Her father had raised her since she was a child. He even devoted half his life to Nian. Nian repeatedly asked to leave, which made her father very angry. So her father agreed to let her live the life she wanted. Seeing her father drive away, Nian shed tears of sadness. At that moment, she didn't know where to go. Before she knew it, Nian arrived at her boyfriend's house. Unfortunately, her boyfriend wasn't home. It turned out that Taehan was drinking alone at a bar. He had confessed his relationship with Nian to his mother. However, his mother firmly opposed their relationship. From childhood, Taehan had never dared to disobey his mother's orders. But for Nian, he threatened his mother. If she dared to make Nian angry, she would disappear forever like his father. Taehan had intended to be alone, but Yunhai followed him. Both of them understood what the other was thinking. After drinking a few glasses, they left. Before leaving, Taehan braved the rain to hail a taxi for Yunhai. Meanwhile, Nian couldn't get the door open. By the time Taehan returned, Nian had just left. Seeing all the rain at the door, he guessed that Nian must have been there. Sure enough, as soon as he stepped out, he saw Nian. At that moment, Nian finally felt warmth in her heart. The next morning, Yunhai accidentally saw the two of them going to work together. She pretended to be concerned and asked Nian where she had been the previous night. But as soon as Taehan was out of sight, she immediately changed her expression. Yunhai believed that Nian had left home and was planning to change her household registration for another reason. However, Nian did not want to argue with her, as it would not be beneficial for anyone if others saw them. Yunhai truly hoped to see Nian's true colors sooner. Since you have already agreed to return everything to me, why are you still acting like the daughter of the company president? Most importantly, Yunhai asked Nian to stay away from Taehan, but Nian spent the night at Taehan's house. Nian also made it clear that she would never give up the man she loved to anyone else. Taehan's mother quickly found out about the relationship between Nian and Yunhai. Therefore, she would never allow Nian, a fake rich girl, to become her daughter-in-law. But suddenly, her subordinate told her some shocking news. Last night, Nian stayed overnight at Taehan's apartment. Sunja, on the surface, is the owner of a small rice cake shop, but behind the scenes, she runs the largest underground money lending operation in all of South Korea. It is said that the money of the Republic of Korea is in her hands, and even the top entrepreneurs in the country have mortgaged their businesses to borrow money from her. No matter how powerful someone is, she doesn't give them a second glance. Sunja has always wanted her son to marry a strong woman. She wanted her son to be able to give up everything to run her unremarkable rice sausage shop, but her son had fallen in love with the weak-willed Nian. What was even more infuriating was that Nian had made it clear that she would never give up her job. Sunja, however, had her eye on the scheming Yunhai. Yunhai had already investigated Sunja's background and learned that she was worth billions. Yunhai was determined to find a way to marry Taehan. However, Sunja quickly finds out about this. If you want to investigate, go ahead and investigate, she says. Sunja tells Yunhai openly that it is her personality that she likes. However, Yunhai shouldn't get too excited, because Sunja is going to test her in various ways. If she passes, Sunja will keep her promise and give her son to Yunhai. Sunja then deliberately asks Yunhai to clean up some pig intestines that are about to go bad. Yunhai usually felt nauseous just from the smell, but in order to check the freshness of the intestines, She picked up a pair of scissors, cut off a piece, and put it directly into her mouth. After smelling it, Yunhai could tell that the middle and bottom parts had been in the refrigerator for several days. She told the delivery man not to bring such things again. Yunhai then realized that Sunja was deliberately testing her. Mrs. Kim rented an apartment not far from the publishing company so that Nian could live more comfortably. But Nian handed over all her money and car keys with tears in her eyes. She was even prepared to give up the publishing company her father wanted to divide between her and her sister. She didn't want to continue worsening her relationship with her family, although she now hated her mother in her heart. Nian believed that this hatred would slowly end one day. By then, she would be able to get along with her mother. Just as she was leaving, Nian ran into Miho, who had just returned home. Miho had seen everything that had happened at home. He deliberately told Nian in a loud voice that Taehan was at the door. He also told Nian to get along well with Taehan in the future. In reality, Miho wanted to tell Mrs. Kim not to let Yunhai set her sights on Taehan anymore. He then instructed Taehan to take good care of Nian. Miho also told him various ways to appease Nian. No matter what, you must stay with Nian until the end of your days. Soyoung heard that Nian had cut ties with the wealthy family and was so angry that she slapped her hard. She had hoped to rely on her daughter to get a share of the wealthy family's fortune and change her fate. But her daughter had brought back nothing. Soyoung angrily declared, "What I want is that family's money, not you calling me mother." The younger daughter couldn't understand how her kind mother could say such a thing. Nian could only swallow all her grievances. That day was Yunhai and Nian's birthday. Mrs. Kim not only bought Yunhai an expensive set of diamond jewelry, but also personally cooked a feast for her. Yunhai was so moved that tears welled up in her eyes, but she accidentally noticed her father silently crying while looking at Nian's diary. Yunhai finally realized that even though Nian had moved out, her father still loved Nian the most. This made Yunhai feel very sad. Meanwhile, no one in Nian's family remembered her birthday. The family ate kimchi as usual. After dinner, Nian had to wash all the dishes for the entire family. Fortunately, her boyfriend remembered her birthday and made her favorite dish, pork ribs. Nian took a bite and almost cried. But before they could take a few bites, Sunja came to the door. As soon as she entered, she angrily kicked Nian's shoes away. Nian wanted to leave, but Taehan held her hand. He wanted to tell his mother that Nian was the most important woman in his heart. Taehan begged his mother to let them be together. Sunja immediately rejected his request. Taehan was worried that Nian's birthday would be ruined, so he angrily kicked his mother out. Nian wanted to change the subject to lighten the mood, so she asked Taehan when his birthday was. But Taehan said that he didn't have a birthday anymore. That day, his mother took him out to celebrate his birthday, but when they returned, his father had died. Taehan didn't say anything about the cause of his father's death. He wanted Nian to give him some more time and said he would tell her everything when the time came. Nian could see that her boyfriend must have some unspoken reasons. She held her boyfriend's hand and swore that the two of them would never be apart. Soyoung found books about her illness and nutritional supplements in Nian's suitcase. She regretted hitting Nian. Soyoung then went to Mrs. Kim's house. She told Mrs. Kim about her illness. Soyoung knew that Nian probably moved out because of her. She didn't want her illness to be a burden on her child. Soyoung knelt down and begged Mrs. Kim to take Nian back. She believed that Mrs. Kim didn't want to see Nian suffer. Mrs. Kim finally understood that Soyoung didn't refuse to acknowledge Nian as her daughter because of money. She also understood why Nian was so anxious to leave. Taehan's mother asked Nian to leave her son, then found his father's creditor. She also paid back the 1 billion won her father owed to the creditors, and told them that she would give them another 1 billion won once everything was settled. The next day, Sunja called Yunhai home and asked her if she was still in contact with her ex-boyfriend whom she had dated for 3 years. Seeing how thoroughly Sunja had investigated, Yunhai was terrified. She then recounted the entire incident from start to finish. She made it clear that the man she truly loved was Taehan, but now, the woman by Taehan's side was Nian. In fact, Sunja also hated Nian, so she wanted to team up with Yunhai to take her son away from Nian. Just then, the cries of a woman and a child could be heard from outside the door. She told Yunhai to use any means necessary to get them out of there. In fact, the woman's husband wanted to borrow money from Sunja because his company was losing money. Since there was no collateral, Sunja refused to help and even drove the man to jump off a building. Seeing the mother and child in such a pitiful state, Yunhai wanted to negotiate with them, but the woman blamed Sunja for her husband's death. Back then, she had begged her for 2 billion won to save her life, but Sunja refused to help. Seeing this, Yunhai turned around and smashed 2 vases on the ground. If you hadn't come here with your husband to cause trouble, You shouldn't have brought the child here. She should have found a way to live with her child first. It would be best if she could raise her son to be strong. The boy cried and begged Yunhai not to get angry at his mother. His mother became like this because she couldn't accept his father's departure. Seeing the boy crying so sadly, Sunja was very satisfied with Yunhai's actions. But when she walked over, she happened to see herself with tears streaming down her face. Seeing the boy, Taehan was reminded of himself. His father's death was caused by his mother. When it was all over, Yunhai was still trembling with fear. Sunja said that Yunhai was the most suitable daughter-in-law for her, but Taehan said nothing and left his mother's house with tears in his eyes. With Sunja's approval, Yunhai's confidence increased. She hoped that Nian would take the initiative to leave Taehan, because it wasn't you that his mother chose. It was me. Nian couldn't understand what was going on and turned to confront her boyfriend. Soon, Taehan brought Nian to the funeral. Nian wondered why he was standing at the door and refusing to go in. Taehan told his girlfriend that the man had died because of his mother. Because of my mother, I've already lost 3 people, he said. Seeing the pitiful boy, Taehan's heart ached, because he had also lost his father at the same age. When he was a child, his mother spent all day at home counting money. Every day, countless people would come to their house to borrow money. After a long time, they were targeted by thugs. His father died after being stabbed several times while protecting his mother. When his mother brought him back after his birthday, his father was lying in a pool of blood. So now, it's not him who has to make the choice, but Nian. Taehan hopes that Nian will think carefully about what to do. His words shocked Nian. Nian knows that this is not a joke, so she might really need to think it through carefully. Meanwhile, Yunhai was also in a tough spot because of her bad behavior. This time she might lose Taehan for good. A few days ago, Yunhai framed Nian by kicking her out of the company and stealing a printing roll containing the new book's design. However, the design had already been reviewed, and Nian didn't notice anything missing until the new book was released. Such a major oversight immediately sparked speculation among the company's employees. Chairman Kim was so angry that he immediately demoted Nian to a regular employee. However, when the printing roll was sent to the printer, Nian had already double-checked it multiple times. Taehan believed that if it wasn't a work error, then someone must have intentionally framed her. He went to the surveillance room to retrieve the footage from that day. However, there were no surveillance cameras installed inside the publishing company, so they could only view the footage from the only surveillance camera at the entrance. When Taehan saw Yunhai's suspicious behavior, he immediately became suspicious. He asked Yunhai if she had anything to do with the missing film, but Yunhai, having done something wrong, would never admit it. She looked wronged and blamed Taehan for suspecting her. Taehan told Yunhai that he had already copied the surveillance video from that day. However, he hadn't watched the video from the time when the film was lost. Yunhai was worried that Taehan would discover her misdeeds after watching the surveillance video, so she went to Taehan's office when everyone else had left work to steal the video from that time. But Taehan returned to the office at that moment. Everything you're looking for is here. Yunhai didn't know how to explain and was about to turn and leave when Taehan grabbed her arm. Are you doing this to frame Nian on purpose? Yunhai couldn't defend herself and had to admit it, because Yunhai wanted to destroy Nian, who was loved by everyone. Nian not only stole my life but also stole the man I loved. Nian, who had been framed, had no choice but to hand in her resignation letter. Unbeknownst to her, Taehan discovered the truth soon after, fearing her father would find out. Yunhai also submitted her resignation. Taehan was furious with Yunhai's actions. You caused such a big mess and now you think you can just walk away? Taehan wanted Yunhai to sincerely apologize to Nian, but Yunhai only gave a cold laugh and said nothing. Chairman Kim was still unwilling to forgive Nian for leaving home. He called Taehan to immediately process Nian's resignation letter. Taehan had no choice but to reveal that Nian had been framed. Upon hearing Taehan's words, Chairman Kim was greatly surprised, but he didn't tell Chairman Kim that it was Yunhai who had done it. Downstairs, Yunhai was so scared she couldn't sit still. She was afraid Taehan would tell her father about her actions. Chairman Kim asked Taehan if this was against the publishing company or against Nian personally. Taehan immediately said that someone was deliberately framing Nian. Now Chairman Kim was even more confused about who Nian had offended. Just then, Mrs. Kim also arrived at the company. In order to prove that he was not a waste of space, Taenin secretly took out his and his mother's shares and borrowed money at high interest from Sunja. He wanted to make something of himself, but he didn't expect to be betrayed by his friends. Mrs. Kim was so angry at her unfilial son that she couldn't say a word. Sunja now had almost as many shares as Chairman Kim. There was one more share in Nian's hands. If they could get Nian's share, The publishing company would be theirs. Mrs. Kim came over to transfer Neon's shares to Yunhai's name. She was wondering how to bring it up with Chairman Kim when she ran into Taehyun. So Mrs. Kim asked Taehyun to call Yunhai for her. When Taehyun came over, Yunhai knew it must be her father looking for her. Taehyun told her about it but didn't mention Chairman Kim. Yunhai was relieved. Mrs. Kim asked Yunhai to bring the seal and transfer Neon's shares in the publishing company to her name. She then went to her husband's office and told him about it. Chairman Kim nodded in agreement, but Yunhai looked particularly nervous when she saw her father. In order to improve their relationship, her father said he would take Yunhai fishing on Saturday, but Mrs. Kim had already made plans with Taehyun to have dinner at his house on Saturday. This would give Yunhai and Taehyun a chance to talk. Chairman Kim had always wanted to hand over the publishing company to him, so he took this opportunity to discuss the matter with him. Neon, who was preparing to quit her job, returned to her biological mother's home. She begged her mother not to chase her away again and to go to the hospital with her tomorrow to get a proper checkup. Seeing that her mother was silent, Neon threatened to tell the whole family the truth if she didn't agree. Neon shouted loudly, and soon the whole family came into the courtyard. Seeing the mother and daughter hugging and crying, the family wonders what is going on. Only Byung-jun smiles, since Neon handed in her resignation letter. Taehyun has been unable to contact her. He thought Neon was giving up on their relationship, but Taehyun had no idea that Neon had made up her mind to be with him. Neon even mustered up the courage to visit her evil mother-in-law, who had always hated her. When Neon, who was born into a wealthy family, stepped into her boyfriend's house for the first time, she realized what a real mansion was. The courtyard in front of the house was 10 times bigger than her own house. Neon could tell at a glance that the furnishings and paintings on the walls were all expensive and rare items. Moreover, Sunja had bodyguards protecting her 24 hours a day. Neon knew that someone like Sunja would be difficult to get along with. But no matter what, she was still a mother. Neon believed that as long as she used her kindness to win over her future mother-in-law, she would be able to stay by Taehyun's side. But someone like Sunja couldn't survive in society if she had even a shred of compassion. What she wanted was a daughter-in-law like Yunhai, who was ruthless and scheming. Only a daughter-in-law like that could take her place. But Neon had already prepared herself before coming. She didn't believe that any mother would not want her child to be happy. As long as she wins Taehyun's heart, Neon believes that she will be able to win over this evil mother-in-law. Neon is shameless and refuses to leave, insisting on eating with Sunja. When Sunja doesn't prepare a bowl and chopsticks for her, Neon sits next to her and acts cute and adorable. But Sunja calls Yunhai over. She acts kind and friendly towards Yunhai in front of Neon. Sunja even asked Yunhai to send the guest away and go to the restaurant to eat and talk. Yunhai told Neon that things aren't as simple as she thinks. This place is 100 times, 1,000 times more terrifying than you can imagine. So she advised Neon to be careful in everything she does. Neon demanded, "If you already know all this, why are you still here?" Yunhai replied that she is the one who can change my life and also the one who can help me defeat you. Mrs. Kim woke Miho up and wanted to use her private property to buy back her and her son's shares from Sunja. "If your father finds out about this, it will be the end of us." Mrs. Kim then came to Sunja to return the money. However, Mrs. Kim had not raised enough money to pay back the interest, so she wanted to use this property to buy back the shares of the publishing company first. But Sunja said she had to confirm it first before she could give her an answer. Just as Mrs. Kim was getting up to leave, she ran into Yunhai. Mrs. Kim stood there stunned, not understanding how her daughter was there. Sunja hurriedly explained that she had asked Yunhai to come over. She was considering making her daughter-in-law. Mrs. Kim couldn't believe that Taehyun had grown up in a family like this. Sunja told Mrs. Kim that she had taken a liking to Yunhai. However, her son had fallen in love with Mrs. Kim's other daughter, Neon. Sunja made a promise to her son several years ago that she would not interfere in his life, but that she would choose his wife. Moreover, Sunja wanted her daughter-in-law to take her place. Mrs. Kim was so shocked that she broke out in a cold sweat. She would never allow her daughter to marry into such a family. However, Yunhai said that she truly loved Taehyun, and no matter what difficulties she encountered, she would not give up on their relationship. Mrs. Kim asked if Neon also knew about Taehyun's family background. Yunhai confirmed that she did. Mrs. Kim thought both her daughters were crazy. However, Yunhai suspected that Neon must have known about Taehyun's family fortune of billions before voluntarily giving up the publishing company. At that moment, Chairman Kim wanted to review the surveillance footage from the day the film was lost, but Taehyun lied, saying the surveillance footage had been destroyed. He didn't want Chairman Kim to discover that the person who framed Neon was his own daughter. In order to clear up Chairman Kim's misunderstanding about Neon, Taehyun hopes that Chairman Kim will visit Neon's current home. When Chairman Kim arrives at his daughter's current home, he unexpectedly learns that she left home because her mother is going blind. Chairman Kim realizes that he has misunderstood Neon. On this day, Mrs. Kim and Yoonhye welcome Taehan at the door. Unexpectedly, Taehan brings Neon home. Yoonhye immediately felt a sense of foreboding. When Chairman Kim heard that both of his daughters liked Taehan, he became furious. He blamed his wife for knowing that Neon and Taehan were dating, yet still trying to match Yoonhye with Taehan. Mrs. Kim insisted that no matter what, Yoonhye was their biological daughter. Chairman Kim reminded her not to forget that Neon had been with them for 28 years. Taehan told Chairman Kim that he and Neon were dating, although Neon didn't tell her father at the best time. He really wanted his father's blessing. Mrs. Kim signaled to her husband not to agree. But Chairman Kim had been very optimistic about them from the beginning. Therefore, Chairman Kim hoped that Neon would have a good relationship with Taehan. At that moment, Yoonhye felt as if her heart had died. She returned to her room and angrily wiped off the makeup she had spent 2 hours applying. Yoonhye knew that it might really be over between her and Taehan, but Taehan couldn't hide his family situation from Chairman Kim, so he decided to tell him about his mother. Although Chairman Kim knew Taehan well and hoped that he would become Neon's partner, no one wanted their daughter to face that kind of family. He wanted his daughter to live in a harmonious family environment. But Neon had already made up her mind about this man and believed in her choice. Sunja quickly learned that her son had been rejected and flew into a rage. In her entire life, she had only ever rejected others and had never given anyone else the chance to reject her. Yoonhye believed her father was an upright man and couldn't accept that her aunt would act so selfishly. The publishing company was her father's life's work. Yoonhye wanted Sunja to return the shares her brother had mortgaged. Sunja thought this was a joke. Once something was in her hands, she never gave it back. No matter what your mother brings as collateral, there is no way I will return those shares to her. Sunja gave Yoonhye a final choice. Do you want my son or your father? If you choose me as your mother-in-law, my position will be yours in the future. If you choose your father, you will perish with them. Faced with the temptation of money and the condemnation of her conscience, what will Yoonhye choose? In order to be with Neon, Taehan must break things off with his mother today. He clearly states that he cannot leave Neon. He will not let Neon see his mother's evil behavior like he did. Sunja never thought her son would abandon her for a woman. Just as the two are about to leave, Neon suddenly receives a call from her father, who is gambling with a group of people. This was all deliberately arranged by Sunja. She forced the debt collector to lure Neon's father into gambling again. As a result, before the police sent by Sunja arrived, Neon took it upon herself to call the police in front of her father. The father's heart was broken by his own daughter being sent to the police station. Sunja's plan was completely ruined by Neon. She had wanted to use this incident to make Neon beg her to spare her father. Sunja was so angry that she was about to go crazy. In fact, Neon hadn't expected things to get this serious, but at this point, she didn't know who to turn to for help. With no other options, she had no choice but to seek out Yoonhye. Yoonhye instructed her foster father to remain silent during the interrogation, as the more he spoke, the more likely he was to slip up. The father was now filled with hatred toward Neon and couldn't hear anything she said. He believed Neon had always looked down on them as poor people and didn't need to pretend to be kind now. Then he angrily kicked Neon out. Yoonhye understood what Neon did today. If she were in her shoes, she would have called the police too. When Yoonhye went outside, she saw Neon crying bitterly in the distance. It instantly reminded her of herself a few years ago. She was in the same place at the same time. Yoonhye was also standing there crying because her father had been arrested. But Neon had never experienced anything like this before. With things suddenly turning out this way, Neon didn't know what to do. Yoonhye told her to fill her stomach first and then figure out a way to bail her father out. Yoonhye then bought a brand name watch and gave it to her ex-boyfriend. She begged Youngho to find a way to help her father, but Youngho was powerless to help. He could only tell Yoonhye that she would have to ask Taehan's mother for help in order to save her adoptive father. Yoonhye had no choice but to ask Sunja for help, but Sunja said that she was the one who sent her adoptive father to prison. Yoonhye finally realized that this was a trap deliberately set for Neon. In that case, Sunja asked Yoonhye what she could give her in return. But what could Yoonhye offer that would be useful? Sunja said that if she gave her her shares, she might help her. Sunja knows that the conditions she set a few days ago make it difficult for Yoonhye to choose. You don't want to abandon your father, but you also can't bear to give up my son. Giving up your shares will not only give you money, but also save your adoptive father. But Yunhai must think carefully about such a big decision. Nian returns to work at the company after Taehan persuades her. Taehan takes the resignation letter Yunhai gave him and tells her to deal with it herself. He wanted Yunhai to personally beg Nian and Chairman Kim for forgiveness, but Yunhai knew that framing Nian was something that couldn't be forgiven by anyone. She couldn't even bring herself to speak to Nian. As long as Taehan didn't reveal the truth, no one would pursue the matter further. But Yunhai never imagined that her father had overheard everything. Chairman Kim had intended to scold Yunhai but was so enraged that his blood pressure spiked, causing him to faint on the spot. Not only did Yunhai not feel the slightest bit sorry for her actions, she even deliberately implied that she was the one who lost Nian's film. She wanted to use every means possible to send Nian to hell. Upon learning that Yunhai was behind it all, Nian was utterly disappointed. But from now on, Nian would never be weak again, nor would she fall into Yunhai's trap. Yunhai told her that even if she didn't become Taehan's mother, she wouldn't let her off the hook, because she had already torn their two families apart, and now she had caused her father to be arrested by the police. Nian finally understood what was going on. Yunhai quickly learned that Chairman Kim had been hospitalized. She was on her way to the hospital when she ran into Nian. Yunhai thought she was going to the hospital with her, but Nian, unaware of the situation, was preparing to go find Sunja to confirm the truth of the matter. The situation was urgent, and she had to find a way to save her father immediately. Yunhai told her that Sunja's purpose in doing this was to make her leave Taehan. As long as she left quietly, everything would be over. Yunhai hurried to the hospital, but aside from Taehan, no one knew the true reason behind Chairman Kim's sudden collapse. When Chairman Kim woke up, the first person he wanted to see was Taehan. Taehan feels very sorry for letting Chairman Kim find out the truth this way. Chairman Kim finally understands that Taehan has been carrying so much on his shoulders. He asks him not to let Nian come see him. He feels that he has misunderstood his daughter too much. As soon as he sees Nian, he won't be able to hold back his tears. Yunhai must not find out about this either. Chairman Kim has only known Yunhai for a short time and doesn't understand his daughter at all. He wanted to know what kind of person Yunhai really was and why she was always targeting Nian. Only by understanding her true intentions could he decide whether to forgive her. The most important thing was to entrust Nian to Taehan. Nian had been as important to him as his own life since she was a child. Chairman Kim believed that Taehan could protect Nian. At that moment, Nian found Sunja. In the eyes of others, all they saw was her ferocity and her money. But Nian sees a mother's love for her child. From many small details, Nian can see that Sunja loves her son very much. This is the first time anyone has said such things to her, and Sunja's opinion of Nian suddenly changes a little. But at this crucial moment, Taehan calls. Sunja instantly regains her senses and immediately understands Nian's purpose. If you break off all contact with my son, I'll get your father out of prison right away. If you don't agree, your father will spend the rest of his life in prison. Sunja also warned Nian that she must make a decision before 9 o'clock. After leaving, Nian immediately went to see her father and bought him some personal items. Nian cried and told her father that she had never hated him or despised him. She only did this because she didn't want to abandon her father and didn't want him to remain stubborn. Chairman Kim only allowed Yunhai to accompany him to the hospital because he wanted to get to know his daughter better. In order to save her father, Nian finally agreed to Sunja's request. Just as Nian was about to call Sunja, Taehan suddenly appeared and grabbed her phone. He told his mother that Nian would not make a choice. He told her to fight him directly. Sunja was so angry that she was about to go crazy. The sudden appearance of her boyfriend gave Nian someone to rely on. Taehan told her not to even think about breaking up. Thank goodness I showed up in time, or you would have dumped me without a second thought. He told Nian to go home first and that he would handle her father's matter immediately. Then Taehan took out the recording of his mother bribing the lawyer. He told him to immediately resolve Nian's father's case according to proper procedures. Soon, Nian was able to bring her father out of the hospital. The relationship between father and daughter began to improve. Yunhai was very happy taking care of Chairman Kim at the hospital. Chairman Kim wanted to arrange a meeting with Yunhai's adoptive parents over the weekend. They had raised Yunhai for 28 years, and he wanted to thank them in person. He also wanted to maintain a good relationship with them and visit them often. However, Yunhai lied and said she had plans for the weekend, refusing her father's invitation. Chairman Kim said that if she had plans, she didn't have to come. He wanted Yunhai to sort out her feelings for Taehan and prepare to take Nian's place. Taehan had already arranged for Nian to join the new business division. This would give her a chance to make amends for her mistakes and work hard to give the readers a satisfactory explanation. Just as Nian and Taehan were having lunch together, Taehan secretly placed a ring on her plate. Neon never expected this straight man to propose in such a way. She would never wear it with such a lack of sincerity. With no other choice, Taehan knelt down on one knee in front of Neon in front of all their colleagues. Neon quickly took the ring and put it on her finger. Yunhai watched this unfold and was so angry she was about to lose it. To win back the man she loved, she had completely lost her mind. Yunhai wanted Neon to give up Taehan, but before she could say anything, Neon covered her mouth. Neon told Yunhai that she and Taehan were already planning to get married. Don't ever set your sights on my husband again. I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't owe you anything. I advise you to stop trying to harm me. Yunhai was so angry that she slapped Neon across the face. Neon didn't back down and slapped her back. Yunhai trembled with rage and was determined to ruin Neon's life. But Neon believed that Yunhai would destroy herself before she could destroy Neon. She could see from Yunhai's expression that she was in great pain. Yunhai was unwilling to lose to Neon, so she turned to Sunja. She wanted to become a millionaire like Sunja. To become wealthy, Yunhai had already abandoned her adoptive mother, who was about to go blind. She was determined to do whatever it took to become someone like Sunja, who could control everything. She wanted Sunja to stop Neon and Taehan from getting married. But how could Sunja possibly agree to her request so easily? She handed Yunhai a fake contract and told her to go to her brother's place to swap it for the real one. Back home, Yunhai sneaks into her brother's room while he is not home. Then she finds the real contract in his drawer. Unexpectedly, the noise in the room alerts her sister-in-law, who is reading in the next room. At this moment, Yunhai is scared and panicked. In a hurry, she picks up some red wine and pretends to be drunk and has gone to the wrong room. Then Yunhai finds an excuse and hurriedly returns to her own room. With the share contract in hand, Yunhai felt like she had grasped a lifeline. She believed that even if her father's publishing company fell into Sunja's hands, it would eventually belong to Taehan. However, things were not as simple as Yunhai had imagined. Neon and her mother were preparing to visit Chairman Kim's house. She shared the good news of her engagement with her mother. Seeing her daughter happy, Soyoung was overjoyed. Soon, the entire family arrived at Chairman Kim's house. Yunhai's gloomy expression made Chairman Kim very uncomfortable. At the dinner table, Neon's father picked up the water bowl and started drinking it in big gulps. Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim hurriedly took the bowl away when they saw this. Seeing everyone's surprised expressions, Soyoung quickly motioned for her husband to put the bowl down. Then she picked up a spoon and showed her husband how to drink it. Neon's father followed his wife's example and picked up a spoon to drink it in small sips. Neon wanted to remind her mother, but Chairman Kim, not wanting to embarrass them, also picked up a spoon and drank the hand-washing water. So Neon followed suit and picked up her bowl. Yunhai, seeing her adoptive parents' unworldly behavior, felt extremely ashamed. Neon, however, was particularly grateful to Chairman Kim for considering her parents' feelings. After eating and drinking heartily, her father began to bring up Neon's marriage. It turned out that Soyoung and her husband thought they had been invited to discuss Neon's marriage. Since Neon was raised by Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim, Soyoung wanted Chairman Kim to set a suitable date for their child. Mrs. Kim wanted to say that she did not approve of the marriage, but her husband interrupted her. Chairman Kim said that Neon was their daughter and they should make the decision. Soyoung was immediately surprised. Wasn't the reason they were invited here because of Neon's marriage? Chairman Kim immediately said, I asked you to come because of Yunhai. It turned out that Chairman Kim wanted the adoptive parents to take Yunhai back. Neon's father thought that they were in conflict over the inheritance of the family fortune. He hurriedly explained that he had no interest in their family fortune. Chairman Kim said that he did not intend to divide the inheritance among his children, but would donate it to society. He did not want to see his children become enemies over a little inheritance. Chairman Kim also hoped that Ran would not forget Soyoung's kindness in raising her and would go back to take good care of her adoptive mother, who was about to go blind. Neon's father finally realized that his wife was about to go blind. He thought of all the suffering he had caused his wife over the years and couldn't help but shed tears. Yunhai was very angry at Chairman Kim's actions. Even if her adoptive mother goes blind, she still has her sister and younger sister to take care of her. Why did he let Neon leave her father when he was so reluctant to do so, yet be so heartless to her? Doesn't he know who his biological daughter is? Your adoptive mother is going blind, yet you say that their only flaw is that they are too healthy. This makes Chairman Kim wonder about Yunhai's true purpose for returning. Since her father treated her this way, Yunhai felt that there was no need to continue hiding the truth. In truth, Chairman Kim was like a designer handbag or expensive clothes bought by Yunhai's mother, along with a huge allowance. Yunhai had already experienced the satisfaction money could bring. How could she possibly return to that home to suffer? If this family couldn't accept her, She'd rather die than go back. Ignoring her mother's objections, Yunhai packed her bags and left. She then dragged her luggage to Sunja's place to show her sincerity. She even brought her shares in the publishing company. Sunja was very happy to see the contract. She ordered her subordinates to let Yunhai stay in her son's room. The subordinates dared not disobey, but they were angry and kicked Yunhai's luggage. Miho was furious when he heard his father's decision. Mrs. Kim was so angry that she wanted to kill her heartless husband. She even threatened to divorce him, disappointed that he had never been understood by his wife. Chairman Kim agreed to divorce her. Although Yunhai got what she wanted and moved into Taehan's room, she didn't dare lie on the bed. She knew she couldn't stay at her father's publishing company. Sunja wanted to get information from Yunhai and told her to endure no matter what happened. But Yunhai abandoned everything, hoping that Sunja would make Taehan and Neon break up instead of being used. Yunhai's cruelty pleased Sunja greatly. Only such a daughter-in-law could take her place. Mrs. Kim couldn't reach Yunhai and was very worried. Neon suspected she had gone to join Sunja. When Neon came looking, she indeed saw Yunhai sitting in Sunja's seat. When she sees Neon, Yunhai deliberately acts like the lady of the house and orders the bodyguards around. Neon hopes that Yunhai will come to her senses and leave, rather than acting on impulse and hurting herself. But Yunhai says that she is Sunja's successor. No matter what, she will protect Sunja's position. Seeing Yunhai so crazy, Neon is so angry that she throws juice in her face. Yunhai also got up without hesitation and splashed the juice back at her. She advised Neon to mind her own business and not interfere in her life. Hearing the commotion, Sunja came to the two of them. She sarcastically mocked Neon's ring, saying it was too small. When did my son become so petty? Sunja also said that when Yunhai gets married, she will buy her at least a 5-carat diamond ring. With Sunja backing her, Yunhai seems to have completely forgotten her place. However, Yunhai and Neon never expected Chairman Kim to show up at that moment. When Chairman Kim saw his two daughters there, he froze in his tracks. He thought that his two daughters had also come to ask Sunja for money. In fact, Chairman Kim came today to discuss Neon and Taehan's marriage with Sunja. Unexpectedly, Sunja said that she didn't want Neon as her daughter-in-law, but Yunhai. She had already planned to groom Yunhai to be her successor. Sunja's words completely shocked Chairman Kim. Chairman Kim demanded that Yunhai pack her bags and go back with him, but Yunhai had no intention of going back. Only Sunja treats me with respect. In that family, my father always cared about Neon and never cared about me. Sunja didn't get the publishing company to give it to her son. She wanted to sell the publishing company that Chairman Kim had spent his whole life building to someone else. And now, the most important part of the company is in the hands of Chairman Kim's younger sister, Jin-suk. Jin-suk married Chairman Kim's father when she was young and gave birth to Miho. But after giving birth, she heartlessly abandoned Miho and went to live abroad. Miho was raised by Chairman Kim as his own son. But recently, he discovered that someone was secretly taking pictures of him. It turned out that Sunja wanted to send these photos to Jin-suk. She believed that as soon as Jin-suk received the photos of her son, she would return to the country immediately. Miho turned around and told his older brother about this. He also said that Taemin borrowed money from Taehan's mother using his sister-in-laws and his own shares as collateral. Furthermore, Mrs. Kim handed over the property under her name to Sunja in exchange for the shares. Upon hearing this news, Chairman Kim immediately ordered Mrs. Kim and his eldest son to get the shares back without changing a thing. If these shares fell into the hands of others, everyone would be left with no choice but to sit and wait for the publishing company to be taken away by strangers. Miho knew he was in trouble and promised his father that he would find a way to get the shares back. His older brother thought that Neon must have a way to get him to meet Sunja. At that moment, Neon suddenly remembered something. She wanted to take a look at the guarantee letter herself. From her recent conversation with Yunhai, Neon concluded that Sunja's goal must be to get the publishing company. So Neon called her uncle and asked him to bring the guarantee letter to her. But Miho was tricked into getting into Sunja's car on the way there. At that moment, Jin-suk had already landed and was looking forward to meeting her son she had never met before. Miho, feeling scared, secretly contacted Neon. When Neon arrived, she happened to see the bodyguards bringing Jin-suk over. Since the bodyguards had a good relationship with Taehan, they decided to give Neon some time. Miho was confined by Sunja, which made Neon very angry. That night, Miho guessed that the person he was going to meet was his biological mother. Neon didn't know what Sunja was planning, but no matter what, she would stop her. Sunja threatened, "I will definitely destroy your family." When Neon checked Miho's guarantee letter, she noticed something was wrong. The guarantee letter was originally signed for 1 year, but now it had been changed to 1 month. If it was for 1 month, yesterday would have been the date when Taemin had to repay the money. Sunja had been refusing to meet with Taemin because she wanted to delay the date. That way, the shares would legally belong to Sunja. But Nian didn't understand what was going on with the guarantee letter. Soyoung found out that the daughter she had raised for 28 years was not only conspiring with bad people, but had also moved into the house of the evil Sunja. With tears in her eyes, she came to find Yunhai and persuaded her to come home with her. Yunhai is now standing on a cliff. If she's not careful, she'll fall and die. So now she can only try her best to keep going. As long as she keeps going, she'll see the light and live the life she wants. Soyoung can't imagine that Yunhai, who has always been her pride and joy, has become like this. Over the years, Soyoung has gone through so much hardship. Looking at her children, she has endured and persevered. But now, she suddenly feels like she can't hold on any longer. Soyoung cried out, begging Yunhai not to be so stubborn. Yunhai replied that she would rather die than go back. Soyoung's legs gave out, and she collapsed to the ground. Nian, who had been waiting outside the door, was also in tears. Nian had thought that only her mother could convince Yunhai to come back, but now it seemed that Yunhai was determined to follow this path and wouldn't listen to anyone. Just yesterday, Nian learned from her adoptive mother that her shares had been transferred to Yunhai. This made Nian feel that something was wrong. If these shares fell into Sunja's hands, her adoptive father's publishing company would be in danger. But Nian had no other choice but to ask her mother to persuade Yunhai to change her mind. Now it seemed that Yunhai had no intention of repenting. Taehan also persuaded his mother to let Yunhai go. Yunhai had gone through so much pain that most people never experience in a lifetime. How could she bear to destroy a young girl's life to make her a substitute for herself? Taehan had lived in fear since he was a child, because of how many innocent families his mother had hurt. Now, he was using his marriage, and he didn't know what kind of trouble his mother would cause. Taehan said that if his mother was fine, he wouldn't go easy on her. He vows to take his mother to court to atone for the innocent lives she has taken. Hearing her son's words, Sunja is so enraged she is nearly driven mad. Nian has always suspected that the guarantee document her brother signed was altered. However, Niho believes this is impossible, as the document has always been kept in Taemin's drawer. Just then, he suddenly recalls an incident from a few nights ago when Yunhai pretended to enter the wrong room and drank alcohol in Taemin's room. So Miho was certain that Yunhai must have done it. The next day at work, Nian threw the wine-stained contract in front of Yunhai. Nian forced Yunhai to confess whether she had changed the guarantee letter, but Yunhai refused to admit it. She stole her notebook and her new project design. She even took the film rolls to frame her, causing the company to suffer huge losses. Nian never exposed Yunhai's despicable deeds, but she would never let this matter drop. How could Yunhai betray her brother and mother by transferring their shares to secure Sunja's position? How could she risk her father's publishing company by stealing Taehan? But Yunhai believed it was just Nian's speculation. What can you do to stop me? But she didn't expect that the switched guarantee document had never been touched by her brother. This alone proves that the contract was forged by Yunhai and Sunja. Nian doesn't want to make a big deal out of this or let her parents find out, so she hopes Yunhai will come to her senses and return the guarantee document. Only then can they protect the shares and the publishing company. But Yunhai tore the guarantee document to shreds right in front of her. What else can you do? Nian told her it was just a copy. She then picked up the video camera and approached Yunhai. Their conversation had already been clearly heard by Mrs. Kim. At that moment, Sunja had already transferred part of the publishing company's shares. Soon, Taemin found out about this. He told Nian that Auntie still held a portion of the shares. If Auntie's shares were transferred, the publishing company would be completely lost. Sunja still felt it wasn't enough and went to Jinsuk in the middle of the night to buy the shares in her hands at double the market price. But Nian had already met with Jinsuk beforehand. Nian told Sunja that she would never let her sell her brother's and mother's shares to anyone else. After being persuaded by Nian, Yunhai decided to go to Sunja's room to steal back her brother's and mother's shares. Unexpectedly, an accident occurred at this critical moment. By the time Taehan arrived, Yunhai was lying in a pool of blood. When he arrived at the hospital, the staff handed Taehan the large bag that Yunhai had dropped. After more than 10 hours of emergency treatment, Yunhai finally regained her life. Sunja returned home and saw what had happened. She was grateful that Nian was not at home. Otherwise, it would have been her lying in the hospital instead of Yunhai. But she wondered why Yunhai would show up in her room in the middle of the night. Sunja hurried to the hospital with her bodyguards. Chairman Kim told her that if she had any conscience, she shouldn't show up here. Unexpectedly, Sunja said that Yunhai brought this on herself. If she hadn't gone to her room, this wouldn't have happened. I really don't understand why Yunhai went to my room so late at night to steal something. If Yunhai had stayed home, she wouldn't have been stabbed by someone else. Taehan couldn't stand it anymore and angrily dragged his mother away. But Sunja was curious why her son didn't get angry this time. He also told his mother to be careful when she went back. At that moment, Taehan suddenly remembered the file folder he had saved with the nurse. When he opened it, he realized that Yunhai had gone to steal back the real guarantee letter. Sunja didn't notice the guarantee letter was missing until the next day, but she didn't understand why Yunhai would suddenly do such a thing. Then Sunja suddenly remembered what Nian had said. She knew that Nian must have been behind it. Sunja angrily called Nian and asked her, "Are you trying to kill Yunhai? Last night, Yunhai took the knife for you and now she's in the hospital fighting for her life." Just like that, Sunja blamed Nian for Yunhai's stabbing. The next day, Sunja bribed the doctor to remove Yunhai's uterus. She believed that only by making her son feel guilty would he marry Yunhai. Nian saw Yunhai lying in the hospital room, crying her eyes out. If she hadn't forced Yunhai to steal the guarantee letter from Sunja, she wouldn't have suffered this fate. Nian told Taehan that she had threatened Yunhai. She also told him everything about how Sunja wanted to sell the publishing company. Taehan never imagined that Yunhai would team up with his mother to do such a thing. When the two returned to the hospital room, Mrs. Kim, who had heard the news, rushed over. Nian apologized to her adoptive mother for making Yunhai like this, but Mrs. Kim had already heard the conversation between her two daughters. She knew that Yunhai was behind everything. Nian had been bearing the injustice all by herself. Mrs. Kim cried and apologized to Nian, saying it was all her fault. The mother and daughter hugged each other and cried bitterly. The misunderstanding between the two was finally resolved. However, Mrs. Kim urged Nian to break up with Taehan as soon as possible. Because of this experience, Taehan was also very afraid of hurting Nian. He had heard that many couples who went on long-distance trips to try living together ended up parting ways due to various conflicts. Taehan wanted to try living apart from Nian to see if he could truly let go of her. Nian cried and told Taehan that she didn't want to talk about it now. She hoped that Taehan would stay with her and wait for Yunhai to wake up. Unexpectedly, as soon as the two returned, they ran into Taehan's mother. The malicious Sunja said that Yunhai had been injured for her sake and would not be able to have children in the future. She demanded that her son take responsibility for Yunhai's future life. She said that who would accept a woman who couldn't have children? The malicious Sunja also told Nian that she had stolen Yunhai's life. You even took her life and her right to be a mother. At that very moment, Yunhai finally opened her eyes in the hospital room. When Mrs. Kim learned that her daughter could no longer have children, the shocking news nearly caused her to faint. After waking up, Yunhai couldn't bear to face her parents. Mrs. Kim was also deeply disappointed in her daughter's actions. She couldn't believe that her own daughter had betrayed her. "I will never forgive you. Just as you said, I will hate you and curse you." Looking at her daughter, whom she both loved and hated, Mrs. Kim cried her eyes out. Mrs. Kim blamed Taehan for everything. She turned around and slapped Taehan hard. If it weren't for this man, how could her two daughters have been hurt like this? Nian couldn't bear to see her boyfriend being treated so unfairly. The two looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. They thought it was over between them, but Taehan suddenly noticed that Nian was running after the bus. After getting off the bus, he scolded his girlfriend for not calling him and running so far away, saying it was dangerous. Nian was afraid that if she didn't chase after him, her boyfriend would disappear from her life forever. Hearing Nian's words, Taehan couldn't help but shed tears. When he got home, he cooked a delicious meal for Nian. In fact, Nian was also afraid that this would be their last dinner together. She told her boyfriend that after they got married, she wanted him to take her around the world. But no matter what she said, Taehan refused to say anything. Nian couldn't help but cry as she spoke, because they both knew what they were facing. Taehan knew that he couldn't change his current situation, and he couldn't let Nian's family get hurt. Perhaps breaking up was the best way to protect Nian. And so, Nian took off the ring on her finger. The two stood outside the door for a long time. Finally, Nian reluctantly left. At that moment, a man suddenly appeared behind her. When Taehan ran out after her, he suddenly realized something was wrong. He turned back to the room, took out the guarantee letter, tucked it into the record, ran out after her, and gave it to Nian. He told Nian to listen to this record. Nian knew that her boyfriend wanted to break up with her completely. Meanwhile, Sunja's assistant had already arrived at Taehan's room searching for the contract. Before he could find it, Taehan pushed open the door. It turned out that Jae-hyuk had been forced by Sunja to steal the contract. Taehan had already anticipated his mother's actions. He told Jae-hyuk to pack his things, then hid in the bathroom and cried uncontrollably. At that moment, Neon, who was in a daze, finally returned home. Fortunately, Byungjin heard her and brought her back to her room. When he came out, he saw the CD. He picked it up and placed it at the door of Nian's room. Taehan had already followed Jae-hyuk back to his mother. He promised his mother that he would take her place, on the condition that she let Nian, Yoon-hae, and the publishing company go. But Sunja didn't believe that her son would suddenly change his mind. She was worried that her son was plotting against her. Mrs. Kim's constant care made Yoon-hae feel very guilty. Every moment she saw her mother, Yoon-hae felt like she was being punished by God. Mrs. Kim wanted Yoon-hae to feel guilty. She had betrayed her family and should be punished accordingly. Just then, her adoptive mother pushed open the door. Seeing Yoon-hae lying in the hospital bed, she immediately knocked over a basin of water. She was both heartbroken and hated herself for raising such an ungrateful child. Mrs. Kim was worried that Soyeon would infect the wound. At that moment, Yoon-hae couldn't bear to face her two mothers. Seeing the knife wounds on Yoon-hae's body, Soyeon's heart was torn apart. She was worried that the scars would remain on her child's body for the rest of her life. This would make it difficult for Yoon-hae to marry in the future. Mrs. Kim then called Soyeon outside. She hoped Soyeon would not consider marriage in the future. Since Yoon-hae had undergone a hysterectomy, she could no longer have children. Saying such things in front of the child could easily cause her harm. With Byungjin by her side, Yoon-hae felt a little more at ease. Byungjin hoped Yoon-hae could return home to recover after being discharged from the hospital. But Yoon-hae had abandoned her adoptive mother and had no face to go back and live with her. Besides, her room had already been given to Nian, unless Nian and Taehan got married and vacated the room. Unexpectedly, Byungjin told her that Nian and Taehan had broken up. Yoon-hae was very surprised by this turn of events. Taehan wanted to beg Chairman Kim to give him one more week. Once he finished the work he was doing, he would leave the company. Now, part of the publishing company's shares have been sold to KK Group. Moreover, the whereabouts of Mrs. Kim and Taemin's shares are unknown. To save the publishing company, they must win over Jinsuk, because Jinsuk is the second largest shareholder of the publishing company. If her shares are taken by Sunja, Chairman Kim's life's work will be completely ruined. However, Jinsuk's only condition is to get her son back. After being rejected by Chairman Kim, Jinsuk came to find her son, but Miho grew up with Chairman Kim. He has always regarded his older brother and sister-in-law as his parents. Miho has always refused to acknowledge that he has such a heartless mother. However, he knows that only his mother can save the publishing company this time. He hopes that his mother will spare the family for his sake. But Sunja has already agreed to pay 3 times the market price for the shares. Faced with the temptation of money, anyone would be tempted. So Jinsuk gives her son 3 days to make a final decision. Sunja is going crazy trying to find the contract. Nian is also looking everywhere for the contract that Yoon-hae stole. Finally, she learns from the ambulance paramedics that the contract has been handed over to Taehan. However, Taehan tells Nian that he does not have the contract. He has agreed with Chairman Kim that he will no longer be involved in this matter and hopes that Nian will resolve it herself. Nian believed this was just an excuse and that Taehan must have given the contract to his mother. However, Taehan still didn't tell Nian that the contract was tucked inside a record. When Nian returned home, thinking about her boyfriend's cruelty, she became furious. She angrily threw everything Taehan had given her into the trash. At that moment, Chairman Kim arrived at Miho's room. Miho, out of gratitude for his older brother and sister-in-law's upbringing, decided to go with his mother. But Chairman Kim couldn't bear to part with his younger brother. If he had to make a choice, he would rather give up the publishing company and keep his brother by his side. The next day, Jinsuk dragged 2 boxes of cash to Chairman Kim. This was the deposit Sunja had given Jinsuk. If Chairman Kim agreed to give her son back, she would return the money. Unexpectedly, Chairman Kim said without hesitation, "Wait until you receive the full payment. Then hurry back abroad." Yoon-hae had recovered enough to get out of bed. But just then, the malicious Sunja suddenly burst in. Yoon-hae saw her face and felt terrified. She had already decided to reform and leave Sunja. But Sunja was deeply grateful to Yoon-hae for saving her life. She said that once Yoon-hae was discharged from the hospital, she would marry her son. Seeing that Yoon-hae refused to speak, Sunja revealed a secret from today. She will never be able to have children. Because of this, Nian and her son broke up. Yoon-hae cannot accept that she will never be able to have children. She knows that this must be God's punishment for her. Yoon-hae is devastated and feels that she might as well die. Taehan knows that Yoon-hae is in a lot of pain. He doesn't want to see Yoon-hae fall into despair. He wants Yoon-hae to face her future head-on after she is discharged from the hospital. Yoon-hae asked him if he would stay by her side forever. Hearing Yoon-hae's words, Taehan was very scared. He didn't want anyone else to be hurt because of him. Jinsuk had already sold all of her shares to Sunja. She was about to leave when Taehan bumped into her. Taehan immediately guessed that the box contained cash. He asked Jaehyuk what was going on. Under the young master's relentless questioning, Jaehyuk had no choice but to reveal the truth. Upon learning that the publishing company was facing a crisis, Taehan was stunned. He absolutely couldn't let the publishing company be ruined by his mother. Taehan looked for an opportunity to find the shares Jinsuk had sold to his mother. Just then, Sunja returned. Upon learning that her son was home alone, Sunja immediately sensed something was wrong. She entered the room and saw her son quietly reading a book, which relieved her. However, Sunja wanted to confirm whether her son would take responsibility for Yunhai. If possible, she wanted to bring Yunhai home after she was discharged from the hospital. But Taehan had already said that he would take his mother's place. The condition was that Yunhai, Neon, and the publishing company be spared. So he urged his mother not to have any other ideas. Sunja said that no matter what, Yunhai was her savior. Taehan asked his mother why someone who loved her grandchildren so much would accept Yunhai, who couldn't have children. The mother he knew wasn't that kind of person. Sunja was speechless, her thoughts exposed by her son. At that moment, Chairman Kim had already made preparations to sell the publishing company. Jae-hyuk, acting on Sunja's behalf, was also preparing to sell Jinsuk's shares to KK Group at a high price. Unexpectedly, at that critical moment, Taehan pushed open the door. Taehan wants Jae-hyuk to hand over what he has to him. He knows that Jae-hyuk has his own difficulties, which is why he has always put up with his mother. Taehan tells him to hide somewhere where no one can find him. Then he takes the shares and negotiates with KK Group himself. This is because his mother obtained them through illegal means by forging documents. If KK Group is reported, the shares they bought at a high price will instantly become worthless. If he doesn't want to become an accomplice, he must withdraw immediately. At this moment, Jae-hyuk's sister, who was about to give birth, came to visit him in the hospital room. Yunhai touched her sister-in-law's belly and felt an indescribable pain in her heart. Mrs. Kim was afraid that her daughter-in-law would hurt Yunhai, so she told her not to come visit anymore. Yunhai took advantage of her family's absence and secretly went to the doctor's office. She wanted to know if there was any way to save her right to be a mother. Unexpectedly, the doctor told Yunhai that her uterus had not been removed. The doctor also took out the money Sunja had bribed him with. He apologized to Yunhai, saying that he had been blinded by money and had agreed to help Sunja cover up the truth. Yunhai finally realized that she had been played by Sunja like a fool. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth, pulled out the needle in her hand, and ran out of the hospital. Yunhai then hailed a taxi and rushed to Sunja's house. Her daughter's frantic scene was witnessed by Mrs. Kim. However, Yunhai, who was still in her hospital gown, had no money. With no other option, she handed the money she had used to bribe the doctor to the driver. When the driver saw the check in the envelope, he was stunned. After regaining his composure, the driver quickly chased after Yunhai. One shouldn't be greedy, otherwise, one will be punished by heaven, he said. Yunhai then went upstairs to confront Sunja. Yunhai asked her why she chose her as her daughter-in-law. Was it to make her a scapegoat and take the blame for her? Yunhai felt that Sunja was against Neon entirely for the sake of her son. As long as she was in Sunja's position, she would lose her life sooner or later. Without Neon, Taehan would not be able to live a good life. If it were her, Taehan would quickly forget her. That way, Sunja could choose another daughter-in-law. Sunja thought Yunhai must be crazy. Yunhai asked her why she lied about her being unable to have children. Sunja explained that she did it to make her son leave Neon and come back to her. She promised that she would treat Yunhai well in the future. Mrs. Kim thought this place was hell. She called Yunhai and told her to come back with her immediately. Yunhai reassures her mother that she must settle this today no matter what. After Mrs. Kim leaves, Sunja still tries to trick Yunhai into taking her place. However, Yunhai is still weak from the surgery and collapses to the ground before she can say anything. Sunja knows that her son must have taken the shares she wanted. She orders her men to use any means necessary to get the publishing company shares back. If she didn't, she would become a laughingstock. So now, all she had to do was fight her son. Yunhai, who was pretending to be unconscious, heard Sunja's words. Soon, Taehan received a call from Yunhai. He took Jinsuk's shares and handed them to Chairman Kim. Taehan apologized to Chairman Kim on behalf of his mother, and told him that Taemin and Mrs. Kim's shares would also be returned soon. The shareholders meeting that KK Group was planning to hold was also quickly cancelled. Sunja's bodyguards arrived at the publishing company but were all subdued by Jae-hyuk. Under Taehan's arrangement, All the bodyguards around Sunja were released and returned to their hometowns. Sunja was so angry when she found out what her son had done that she was almost driven mad. Taehan told his mother that from now on, he would be the only one by her side. Before leaving, Yunhai came to Taehan's room once again. When she picked up the book again, she finally understood what those words meant. Seeing this, Yunhai shed tears of regret. Jinsuk sold her shares and left all the money to her son. She didn't want her son to hate her for the rest of his life. She sold the shares in a fit of anger. Although she had failed to fulfill her duties as a mother over the years, she never forgot her son's birthday. Jinsuk also bought her son clothes of all sizes according to his age. Before boarding the plane, she kept looking back, hoping to see her son one last time. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, she heard her son's familiar voice. Miho thanked his mother for remembering him all these years and buying him birthday presents every year. Jinsuk's only wish now was for her son to call her mom. When Miho called her mom, she couldn't hold back her tears. At that moment, mother and son embraced tightly. Miho's years of resentment were instantly dissolved. At that moment, Neon, who was feeling down, returned home and suddenly saw the teddy bear and record she had thrown away. Byunjin noticed these items in the trash and helped her retrieve them. When Neon picked up the record, she suddenly realized that the guarantee document everyone had been desperately searching for was tucked inside. At that moment, she also realized she had misunderstood her boyfriend. She had endured so much injustice for her boyfriend. After crying, Neon disregarded everything and went to Taehan's house that night. When she hugged Taehan tightly, Taehan wanted so badly to hug the woman he loved deeply back. He clenched his fists to control himself. Reason told him that he couldn't get back together with Neon. If he did, the next person to get hurt would be Neon. He angrily asked Neon why she had come here. Since he had seen the contract, he had to find a way to resolve the situation immediately. The longer he waited, the more dangerous it would become. Between Neon and his mother, Taehan could only choose the latter. In order to avoid misunderstandings, he had no choice but to push the matter onto Neon and let her resolve it herself. With all the problems resolved, Taehan hoped that his mother would also forget about the matter and live a good life from now on. However, Sunja felt that her son was deliberately doing this to show her. She did not believe that her son was of the same mind as her. But the next day, she suddenly saw her son's resignation letter on his desk. In order to change her son's mind, Sunja went to see Yunhai again. She told Yunhai that Taehan wanted to quit his job. Sunja was afraid that her son would take her place and bring trouble upon himself. On the other hand, she was afraid that her son would go to the police and report her, ruining everything. Now, the best thing to do was to let Yunhai take over her business. Seeing Yunhai unmoved, Sunja pulled out a diamond ring worth 10 billion won. Yunhai said, "So it seems you have your fears too. You're afraid your son will leave you. So you've been living in constant fear." Sunja finally admitted her true purpose. Her son had always been her pride, and she didn't want him to live such a devilish life. At that moment, Yunhai finally came to her senses. But Sunja still believed that someone as greedy as Yunhai would never give up this chance to turn her life around. Before leaving, she secretly placed the ring on Yunhai's body. That night, Neon visited Sunja's house again. Neon wanted to be Sunja's daughter-in-law and stop her from hurting others. Sunja thought Neon's words were a joke. "Who are you to interfere with my choices?" Neon said that if she didn't want to go to jail, she had to listen to her. Sunja finally realized that the contract she had been searching for was in Neon's hands. Neon wanted to use the contract to threaten Sunja, and promised that if her aunt gave up her career, she would burn the original contract. "If you don't agree, then I'll have no choice but to go to the police station with Taehan and report your crimes. While you're in jail, I'll marry your son and have his children." In order to keep Neon calm, Sunja had no choice but to agree to consider giving up her career. Naive Neon thought she could really convince Sunja. However, as soon as she left, Sunja found someone to get the contract back. Yunhai told Taehan everything Sunja had said. She wanted to know how to resolve this situation. Taehan begged Yunhai to first agree to let her mother inherit her position and accept her ring. The next day, Yunhai called Sunja and said that she still wanted to live a wealthy life. She also hoped that Sunja could arrange for her to marry Taehan quickly. Moreover, this matter had to be kept secret for the time being and no one could know about it. This was great news for Sunja. That night, Neon came to the hospital room to visit Yunhai. After going through so much, the relationship between the two had eased a lot. Yunhai no longer resented Neon. But when Neon told her about finding Sunja, Yunhai thought she was crazy. "If Sunja found out that I stole the contract and gave it to you, she would never forgive you." Yunhai knew that no one could change Sunja's mind. She also knew that Neon was no match for Sunja. In order to keep Neon out of danger, Yunhai asked her to give the contract to her. Neon said, "It's not that I don't trust you, but I'm afraid you'll get hurt again." After leaving the hospital, she had already been followed by Sunja's henchmen. The thugs didn't expect Nian to show no fear at all, but instead seemed happy. He was so angry that he threw a shovel full of dirt at Nian. He ordered her to hand over the contract immediately, or else he would bury her there. Just then, Nian's phone suddenly rang. When the thugs saw that it was Yunhai on the phone, they couldn't help but complain that this was fate playing a joke on them. Back then, he had also buried Yunhai here and nearly lost his life. The arrogant thugs threw the phone into the bushes across the way, but accidentally pressed the answer button. Nian took the opportunity to tell them her current location. At that moment, Yunhai happened to run into Jaehyuk. She took Jaehyuk with her and ran all the way to the mountain. Jaehyuk subdued the thugs with a few punches and kicks. Yunhai ignored the pain from her wounds and continued on to look for Nian. When she saw Nian desperately climbing out of the pit, Yunhai thought of how she had lain there, waiting desperately for death. At that moment, she realized why she always lost to Nian. Yunhai reached out her hand and sincerely apologized to Nian. Nian was also grateful that Yunhai had come in time. When Taehan found out that Nian had been kidnapped by his mother, he was furious. He was determined to send his mother to prison this time. When he returned home, he lied and said that he had found the murderer who had tried to kill Nian. When Sunja happily arrived at the police station, she realized that she had been deceived by her son. Soon after, Jaehyuk arrived with the men who kidnapped Nian. Taehan told the police officer about his mother's evil deed of kidnapping Nian. Sunja arrogantly gave her name and demanded that the police officer call their boss immediately. But the police officer pretended not to hear and continued to interrogate Sunja. Nian didn't want to make things worse because of herself. She tells the police officer that she wasn't kidnapped, but that she made up the whole story to get back at her mother-in-law. When Yunhai returns, she gives the contract to her mother. She tells her mother that Nian still wants to change Sunja with her sincerity, although she doesn't know what the outcome will be. Yunhai admires Nian's courage. She can't put her mind in the right place like Nian, so there's no way she can win against her. Today, Yunhai was completely defeated by Nian. Mrs. Kim picked up the contract and decided to take down Sunja. As soon as the three left, Mrs. Kim went to the police station. At that moment, Yunhai came to the study to apologize to her father. Chairman Kim was very relieved to see his daughter reforming. He told Yunhai to go home first and take care of her adoptive mother, who was about to go blind. After recovering her health, she should return to work at the company with Nian. Dad's punishment for you isn't kicking you out of the company. It's letting you come back and learn from Nian. Pick yourself up where you fell. Chairman Kim believes that his daughter will shine in his world. The vicious Sunja returns home and shows no gratitude to Nian. She even knocks over the glass of water Nian brought her. Sunja thinks that Nian is conspiring with her son to frame her. Nian doesn't explain anything. She only wants to use her kindness and understanding to change Sunja. When Nian goes to pick up the broken cup, she accidentally cuts her finger. Sunja suddenly feels a little sorry for Nian, but when she realizes what she has done, she turns her head away. In order to get rid of Nian, Sunja deliberately calls Yunhai back. She tells Nian that Yunhai is her favorite daughter-in-law. Even if you report me with the contract in your hand, it's just a formality. So she advised Nian not to waste her efforts. When Yunhai arrived, she hinted to Nian to go back. Nian instantly understood what Yunhai meant. Sunja thought that Yunhai had come to get herself. She even tricked Yunhai into stealing the contract from Nian's hand. Yunhai told her that she had already stolen the contract, but had returned it to her mother. Then she took out the ring worth 1 billion won and returned it to Sunja. Sunja said excitedly, "Aren't you going to inherit my business and become my daughter-in-law?" Yunhai said, "I don't want to become a mother like you. I can't let my child become like Taehan, who has lived in pain all his life." Sunja was soon reported by Mrs. Kim and was once again locked up in the police station. She was still arrogant, thinking that this was just a formality. Until now, no one had dared to put her in jail. "When I get out tomorrow, I will pay you a visit myself." Mrs. Kim apologized to Taehan for reporting his mother, but Taehan did not blame Mrs. Kim at all. It was his mother who turned Mrs. Kim's home upside down. Mrs. Kim hoped that Taehan would return to work at the publishing company. Moreover, Chairman Kim had already decided to retire and let him run the publishing company. However, Taehan said that he had already handed in his resignation and broken up with Nian. But when he returned, he saw his mother smiling and talking on the phone. Just as Sunja was gloating, a news report suddenly came on TV. It turned out that Sunja's safe had been set on fire by her enemies, causing billions of dollars in damage. When she saw the burned contract in the reporter's hands, Sunja recognized it as her safe. She believed that her son must have set fire to her safe, but Taehan had no idea where his mother kept her valuables. Perhaps this was karma. Taehan told his mother that the items she had hidden in the refrigerator were still in his possession. He hoped that his mother would be able to atone for her sins and that he would be a good son when she returned. After everything was over, Taehan quit his job, packed his bags, and prepared to leave the city. On the way, he heard Neon's message: "If you really disappear, I will never forgive you for the rest of my life. Don't make me forget you, and don't take your memories away from me." Taehan hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to go back and face Neon. He borrowed the driver's phone and called Neon's number, but Neon saw the unfamiliar number and didn't answer. Byung-jin knew Neon was in a bad mood, so he dragged her out. He took her to the lawn and lit fireworks together. Then Byung-jin kissed Neon passionately. He wanted to spend the rest of his life healing Neon's wounded heart. But this scene was witnessed by Taehan. But he didn't see that Neon didn't accept Byung-jin, so Taehan chose to leave, and the two never met again. After Sunja was sent to prison, only Neon visited her regularly, although Sunja always responded coldly whenever Neon came. Neon acted as if she hadn't heard and changed the subject to talk about things that interested her. Sometimes she would even try to ask about Taehan's whereabouts. As time passed, Sunja slowly got used to Neon and no longer hated her so much. However, Sunja still didn't mention anything about her son. The happiest thing in prison was receiving letters from her son. Taehan said that he was now in a remote place helping a group of troubled teenagers reform. Here, he had no distractions and his life had become exceptionally peaceful. Yunhai and Neon still decided not to change their household registration. Yunhai was still registered under her poor parents' household registration, and Neon was still legally the daughter of Chairman Kim and Mrs. Kim. Compared to the past, both of them had matured significantly. After the two daughters reconciled, Chairman Kim fired the family's maid. He wanted his good-for-nothing son to take on all the household chores. Chairman Kim threatened his son that if he didn't comply, he would be kicked out of the house. This was his way of forcing his son to reform and get back on the right path. That day, the news reported that a kind-hearted person had donated a large number of books and cash to welfare institutions across the country. This incident also caused a huge stir. Neon immediately recognized Taehan's handwriting on the books. Moreover, the large order they had received earlier and the new book design they had been asked to create were both done by Taehan. Neon began investigating the name and phone number of the person who placed the order. She soon discovered that the name was fake and the phone number was disconnected. Sunja's release date was approaching. Neon arrived early with a block of tofu. Sunja took the tofu from Neon's hands, ate a few bites, and looked around nervously. Neon knew she was searching for Taehan. Sunja pulled out all the letters her son had written and handed them to Neon. She ordered Neon to find her son immediately. Soon, Neon boarded the train heading there. Byung-jin, who had just passed the bar exam to become a judge, was heading there on a case, so Byung-jin accompanied Neon to find Taehan. The next day, Neon found Taehan in the muddy swamp with the help of a girl. Seeing the woman he loved slowly approaching, Taehan froze in place. Neon grabbed handfuls of mud from the ground and threw them at Taehan. "You've lost weight and gotten so tan in the past few days." Amid the cheers of the children, the two finally embraced each other. Under the influence of his family, Neon's father completely reformed himself and began spending every day by his wife's side. After Soyeon lost her sight, Yunhai suggested publishing her mother's signature dishes in a book, which received strong support from Neon and her father. When Yunhai returned to the bookstore where she used to work to promote her foster mother's book, she was praised repeatedly by her former colleagues. This time, she finally lived the life she wanted. Soon, it was time for Neon and Taehan's wedding. The two fathers walked their beautiful brides down the aisle toward the groom. Yunhai's father couldn't help but kick his son-in-law on the butt. With everyone's blessings, the two lovers were happily married. Yunhai was lucky enough to catch the bouquet. Soon, Yunhai's sister-in-law added a grandson to the family. Mrs. Kim instructed her daughter-in-law to take good care of the child, so Taemin quickly brought out the sign to remind everyone not to mistake the child. Today's story comes to an end here. Thank you for your support and companionship. See you next time.